You're not alone. If you need someone to talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day, or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth. Today's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba is brought to you by Fabricland Winkler, AETI, and Evolve Green. In today's edition of the show, we got a good guest lineup for you guys lined up. Just some clarification. Lorena Mitchell will unfortunately not be joining the show today. She is still recovering from COVID-19, so we will hopefully be hearing from Lorena next week on the Solar Report, all the good things that she talks about on that report. But we got Harry Siemens joining the show here first off today on the Farm Report to talk about some stories that are happening here in agriculture. Also going to be having Game On Magazine, Game On Hockey editor Scott Taylor joining the show to talk about what Game On is, how it started, his background in sports, and all that good stuff. And then Gordie Tumilson will be joining the show on the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy segment this week, and then we'll end off with a edition of Graeme's Opinion, of course, in two parts. First off with Seth Rach talking about the Winnipeg Jets, some stuff going around in the NHL. Well, not going around in the NHL, but to do with the NHL other than the Jets, Team Canada's men's hockey Olympic roster, and then I'll be going solo to talk about the NFL and some other stuff. So stick around for throughout the show. Stay tuned for the great guests that we got joining today's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba, Manitoba's show here on ASTV Productions, everybody. And as always, to start off Rise and Shine Manitoba here, you're going to hear from the farm journalist himself, Harry Siemens, on this week's edition of the Farm Report. The Farm Report brought to you by Wolf Enterprises, and Harry Siemens, the main man himself, joining the show here on this Wednesday morning. Harry, I know that you said you're doing okay, but you're also doing good on this Wednesday morning. Great to have you on the show once again here on Wednesday.
Hey, it's always a pleasure, and you know what? I keep working forward. There's things happening. We had one of the best snowstorms I think we've had in a long time, meaning that we really haven't had those kind of snowstorms for some time. And and keep talking to farmers. Any kind of moisture that keeps coming down, whether it's drifting into the trees or whatever else. The biggest thing we need to happen is we need to see some awesome spring runoff. Yes. It's even going to produce some flooding, probably, if the snow keeps falling. But at the same time, we need the moisture. My father always used to say, he would rather have it too wet than too dry. And here's why. He says when it's too wet, the sloughs, the puddles, they would kind of drown out. But if it's too dry, the hills were not producing. And I was just looking at some pictures coming back from Saskatchewan, I believe, 2016, maybe, one of the few times that all the hills between Swift Current and Medicine Hat had snow on them. And that year there was an awesome crop. So the more snow we get, the better off we are.
Yeah, and we sure have been getting a lot of snow here, Harry. It was crazy on Tuesday. I mean, I saw some videos on Facebook, on social media, some people posting. I mean, the visibility on the highway in Saskatchewan and in Manitoba, just I don't think visibility existed in those videos, to be honest. It was that crazy. But talking about how going more into the benefits of this, the more moisture the better, right? The wetter it is, the more moisture, the better it will be for farmers. How that will be impacting farmers starting off here in spring coming up.
number one, as we've talked often, it affects the attitude. If we were going into this spring with no snow on the grounds like we did last year, it's not good for that. Even though the farmer is the eternal optimist, but when the subsoil moisture is missing and there's no moisture on the top, that's depressing to say the least. Because as I've talked to you before, and I like to keep impressing upon that, farmers are putting in $200 to $300 an acre cash before anything ever gets starts to come up. That's just the seeding and the planting going on. And so, the moisture we have now, the better off we are. And I had this tour with my friend on an airplane back in, I guess it was August, September. And we saw the low lake at Morden, Manitoba, where the city depends on the water. I saw the irrigation ponds that had very little water in them. The Red River, the Assiniboine. No, I didn't see the Assiniboine that particular flight, but all the different ponds and the creeks, dry and more dry. So, hey, I believe that we can do really well with a lot of moisture. Let's get some real heavy moisture. Yes, we're going to see some flooding in spring. They're talking about it already, but at the same time, let's go for it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about, spring farming in just a moment here coming up on the Farm Report. But talking about the truck convoy briefly here, touching on that, expanding on what we talked about last week.
Well, things are continuing on just about the same as we did a week ago, except now they've decided they're going to just stay there as long as possible. I have a trucker friend, John Weeb, and his partner, Crystal. They keep informing me. And, the trip along the way has been awesome. A lot of the things we're hearing from the mainstream media are basically really not happening, except in very isolated situations. When they do happen, there's always from the truckers' perspective, they are there to fix it and to clean it up and so forth. So that part of it's been good. What will be the result of it? That's the politics of it. And I've decided I'm not going to get into it. The only thing that I'm going to repeat, and it bears repeating. Somebody asked me yesterday, I was on a private podcast being interviewed about this situation. And he asked me, he says, how does this all affect the farmer? Well, we've got pigs, as I've told you, waiting to go to the United States. When you don't have truckers enough, the pigs stay home. And you cannot put a pig on a shelf. You got to get it to the processing stage so that you can put the pork on the shelf, right? Yeah. And then, of course, we have the grain, the feed on the American side. That needs to come here because we're short of feed. We only had a 60% crop in 2021. The prices were so good that obviously farmers have been selling that crop as much as absolutely possible. So we need truck drivers. We need a trucking industry that is solid. You know why? If the truckers keep becoming less and less, and there's fewer of them, then we're going to continue to see the trucking rates go up. We're going to see the cost of product go up because it's in short supply, and we're not going to see the product. I walked with my daughter Laurel into the superstore here a few days ago, and here we are. Looking at the shelves, and my daughter says, "Boy, this sure looks picked over." Well, yes, it is picked over, because there just isn't as much product, and the things that we are used to getting regularly, they may be sitting somewhere on a dock because there isn't a driver, and if there isn't a driver, the truck is not driving. So in the meantime, I'm hoping we can resolve it because not only the agricultural industry, all of us, we need a solid, happy, safe trucking industry because everything moves somewhere, whether it's 100 feet or 1,000 miles, it moves by truck.
Well, we'll continue to, have updates on the story about the trucking convoy as, time goes on here. But you are right, you can't have live pigs on the shelves, but you can sure have dead pigs on the shelves and in the freezers, right? So, that would be the ideal situation. But, continuing talking about the spring, talking about just planting, what that's going to look like, getting ready for that.
Well, I sat down with a young farmer who actually helps his father. He was here yesterday, and that's what prompted that particular remark. He says, "Well, my father is only planting wheat and soybeans this year. He's not going to be planting canola." Well, I says, "How come your father isn't going to plant canola? Because canola has been the big money crop as long as I can remember, basically." And he said, "Well, we're not sure if we're going to have the moisture. Sure, we have snow, but that's runoff. We need the subsoil moisture is still limited." And he says last year the canola just didn't do as well as the soybeans and the wheat. So this particular year he's not going to grow canola. And if you take it by percentage, if one farmer says he's cutting back on canola, that means that maybe 10, 15, or 20 other farmers are going to cut back on their canola. So getting ready for spring planting, I'm hoping farmers are going to stay the course. I know my brother, farms soybeans, canola, and wheat, and it rotates, right? You have a 3-year rotation. 1 year it's wheat, next year it's canola, and the next year it's soybeans. And then it keeps rotating on all the different fields because you do not want to plant more than you need at least 2 years in between you plant the same crop again, because you get weed resistance, you get weeds that you cannot kill with spray, and those kinds of things. So that's my biggest comment today is that farmers are getting ready, very much so, getting ready for spring seeding. That's why the snow is a good additive as far as positive attitude is concerned. The crop prices on the one hand are up there, really in good stead, but the input costs are up there just as high. So now we need to make sure that we get the input costs down a bit and maybe the crop prices up a little bit so that there's the margins that we can continue to grow food to feed the world, because that's what farmers do. Yes, it's a business. They make a living and their families make a living, but we're feeding the world. And that's why, Graeme, I'm in this business in my 51st year. Because number one, I love the farmers. I'm a farmer's advocate. I love to write about agriculture, and I like to get it right. Sometimes if we go back to the convoy, we're seeing reports that are exaggerated. You know what? I've had the privilege of being able to stick to the truth. Yes, sometimes you don't get it right and people will complain. But at the same time, I have such a desire in my heart at 75 years old to continue to serve the farmer, because we're feeding the world. And that to me is probably one of the biggest career choices that I made when I decided to help those who are feeding the world.
Yeah, well, you do it for a good reason, Harry, and appreciate it that you're able to come on here every Wednesday morning and give us your knowledge on the farming industry and just the agriculture industry, everything that's going on. But talking about another thing, and then we'll get into your farming tip of the week. But you're talking about how there was a farming story, meaning you'll be sharing a farming story you encountered. So I'm pretty interested to hear about this.
I figure I'm going to try and include a farmer story every show. I'm going to start with my father and my brother. Technology, innovation is such a big thing on the farm. There was a time when we planted everything with what we call a seeder drill. And it took a lot of time. It's a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of cultivation. Then my brother suggested, let's go to the seeder diskers. Now it becomes a lot easier and quicker to actually plant. So we did. And my dad was such a particular farmer. So when that crop came up, and for those of, when you put it in with a seed drill, it is straight and you can see in between the rows. when you put it in a cedar discer kind of goes this way at a diagonal, right? And so you don't see the rows. The seed is covered and there are no rows. And so the crop starts to come up and my dad says, where are the rows? He says, it looks like everything's weeds. And he says, next year we're going back to the cedar drill. Well, my brother said to him, Dad, if you want to go back to the cedar drill, you go back to it. Then I'm not farming. We never went back to the seed drill. We kept going with the discer because my brother had seen what it could do as far as efficiency. Fast forward, there comes a time when my brother is farming with his son, and they go from cedar discers to air seeders. Now we've got something that's really technologically advanced, and my son was pushing my brother. So they go ahead and put in the entire crop with an air seeder. And it comes uneven because they couldn't adjust that air seeder. Some would be planted shallow, some wouldn't be planted at all. My brother says to his son, next year we're going back to the cedar discers.
Yeah.
His son says, if that's what's happening, then I'm not farming. You can go back to cedar discers. So it had come full circle.
Right.
Father, son, grandson. And today, they parked those cedar discers. They never moved them again, except to out of the way. And they're into air seeders and those kinds of things. So we're doing all those kinds of things. It's so fun to watch what's going on in agriculture. But a lot of the stuff is starting to pass me by. So we just keep talking about the things I keep understanding.
Yeah, for sure. And crazy how that cycle just keeps on going from generation to generation, right? But excited to hear about your farming story next week that you'll have for us here on the Farm Report, Harry. But before we end off, something that we always do here, your farming tip of the week on Siemens Says, Harry Siemens farming tip of the week for farmers here on Rise and Shine Manitoba on the Farm Report.
Well, basically, it somewhat continued again from some of the articles that we've talked about today. Some of the stories, but you know what? We're getting into spring seeding, and I'm suggesting to farmers, and I don't have to tell many of them, stick to what works for you. Let's not get into all kinds of other things this spring because there's a lot of uncertainties. But one certain thing is, if you stick with what you've been doing in the past, that doesn't mean you're stopping, technology and you're not looking for new things, but go with the flow. This one farmer, he says, you know what? I'm not going to go with that canola. Well, he's already older, but he's going to go with 2 crops. The next guy will say, I'm going to go exactly with what I did last year, just rotate it a little bit so that I can put some other stuff in if I need to.
Well, there it is. Harry Siemens, farming tip of the week for farmers here on the Farm Report, brought to you by Wolf Enterprises. Harry, until next week when we do it all again on Wednesday morning, we'll see you then. You continue to keep on rocking, and we'll see you next week on Wednesday.
Yeah, and that's Siemens Says.
There you go. Harry Siemens on the Farm Report, taking care now. And always great to start off our shows here with Harry Siemens. But we got a guest that has never joined the show here, joining the show for his very first time. It's an editor of Game On Hockey, Game On Magazine. Scott Taylor. Scott is going to come on the show to give us some insight about who Game On Magazine is, how it started, his background in sports, and some many other things to do with Game On. So we're going to take a quick commercial break and get Scott Taylor in here in just a moment. But you're watching Rise and Shine Manitoba, Manitoba's show here on ASTV Productions. Everybody stick around for more after this commercial break.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? we can install a system that is right for you, with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba, everybody. Manitoba show brought to you by Evolve Green, AETI, and Fabricland Winkler. You'll be hearing from AETI and Fabricland while seeing their commercials later on in the show. But Harry Siemens joined the show here first off today on the Farm Report. Always great hearing from Harry on that weekly segment. But now it's time to talk some hockey, and more specifically talking to an editor from Game On Hockey, Game On Magazine, Scott Taylor, joining Rise and Shine Manitoba here. Scott, nice to meet you. How are you, man? How you doing?
How are you?
I'm doing.
It's another beautiful morning in Manitoba, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful. The snow, the weather.
It's 44 outside my back door.
Yeah, it can't get any better than that. I mean,
it cannot get any better.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, it's nice to meet you, Scott. Nice to have you here on the show. Game On Hockey. I mean, a magazine that's been growing throughout the years. Let's get this first question out of the way. How Game On Magazine started.
I had done a football magazine called The Huddle for a couple of years when I was a consultant to Football Manitoba, and it was pretty successful. Selling advertising for football was difficult, but it was a really, really quite a good magazine. And I got a call one day from Dale Huseman. I don't know if you remember Dale. Certainly his son Adam was a great player in Manitoba and played in Europe as a professional, and I think played in the American Hockey League as well. Dale gave me a call one day, and at the time he was the president of the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, and he and his family owned Esdale Printing. Now the Huseman family still owns Esdale Printing, and he had an idea where he would do a hockey magazine to support the MJHL at the top, and then all the other amateur leagues, because at the time the mainstream media this is 10 years ago, 11 years ago, had pretty much decided not to cover any amateur hockey at all. It was the return of the Jets. It was Jets, and if they did get any coverage, it was their finals. So there was nothing during the regular season. So Dale called, and he had this idea where we would sell some advertising and do this magazine. It was called the Manitoba Hockey News, and he would print it out of Esdale, and he had some great ideas how he would run it off the end of other people's print work and save himself some money and see if his sales guy could sell some ads. And the first person who came aboard were the folks at the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League. That was our first real big supporters, the MMJHL. And from there, it grew. Gary Mitchelluk was the sales guy, and he did a really good job getting us started. And Manitoba Hockey News lasted three issues. And suddenly Dale was diagnosed with the worst possible form of thoracic cancer you could get. And I saw Dale on a Thursday in his office. He looked really, really good. We were getting set to get the third edition out. And by Sunday, he had passed away. That's how bad this disease just got to him. It was really fast. And so we printed the third one, and the decision at the time was Esdale didn't want to continue with the concept. They had other routes they wanted to go, and that was fine by me. I didn't think it was going to work any other way. But a couple of guys called me and said, why don't we start a new one? Hockey can work in Manitoba, and we want you to do it. So I hooked up with a couple of other guys, and we did had a meeting for 15 minutes, renamed it Game On, and got going. We got rolling, and me and another guy sold most of the advertising, and the book started at 48 pages and got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we can't hold it back a lot less than about 136 now. Wow. It's been a huge success in terms of support. We started with the MMJHL, and then the old KJHL came in, which became the CRJHL, and the Capital Region stuck with us. And the Manitoba Junior League came aboard, and Balmoral Hall was in really early. Jennifer Paluk at Balmoral Hall was really, really good early on, and Chris Alanot, and of course Sarah Zacharias, who was phenomenal. Bal came aboard, and then the Manitoba Women's Junior League came aboard, and then the Manitoba Female Hockey League U18 AAA came aboard, and everybody started to jump on. The Brandon Wheat Kings were in early, and then it really got big when the Ice came aboard and the Jets came aboard. And the Jets, an interesting story. I've known the Jets Vice President of Marketing, Dorian Morphy, since he was about 15 or 16. A close friend of mine, his daughter was Dorian's girlfriend and eventually became Dorian's wife. So Dorian and I go a long way back, but Dorian is a tremendous professional, very, very good at his job. And he told me right to my face over lunch, when you're 5 years old, when you've lasted 5 years, I'll have a discussion with you about getting the Jets on board, because there have been 1 million hockey magazines come by my office, and not one of them lasts more than a year. So when you can come in and celebrate your 5th anniversary, I'll have a serious conversation. Yeah. And the day we put out the last issue to end the 5th year, I called Dorian and said, we're starting year 6 next year. Are you aboard? And he said, let's get lunch next week. And the Jets just hopped on. He was always been a young man of his word, and he still is to this day, and has been a tremendous supporter of what we've been doing. So with the rink and the Jets coming on board, it kind of put us over the top. And we reached a point where I got tired of owning it and sold it to my friend Jay Averbach, who in turn sold it to Sean Davis of Davis Media, and Davis Media runs it today, and I work for them. So that's basically the business aspect of Game On.
Yeah, right on. And to see where it's grown to at this point, I mean, adding the Jets, adding all these great leagues that you guys cover. I mean, obviously you've sold it now, but must give you a lot of pride knowing how far this has come and how this vision, how it started off, it has grown to this point with Game On magazine, which, you know, it's been called the biggest, best looking, and most informative hockey magazine on the planet.
Yeah, and I think it is. I sometimes wish we'd all had the energy to make it bigger, but we're not going to fight the Hockey News. We do a lot of things with the Hockey News. They run a number of the stories that we run, and I do a podcast out of Toronto that's, boy, has it blown up too. Gooch Live, started by Kerry Goulet, from originally a Winnipegger, now lives in Toronto. And the Hockey News sponsors that. So we're pretty close with the Hockey News, and I don't think it'll ever be a national magazine. It's the difficulty to print our magazine nationally would put us out of business in about 2 days. Because if you're going to go national, you better print 100,000 copies.
Right.
And that's just way too expensive for our taste. So we've been in Manitoba for the whole 10 years, and there's been some interest out of Saskatchewan. We're in conversation with Notre Dame, Lord Atholmurray College, to join our little fun group that includes Pilot-Mound and the rink and Balmoral and those particular academies. And so I think Notre Dame, which has for a long time recruited Manitoba players, I think is quite interested in us. And we've also had some conversations in the United States. Now, we do a radio show out of 790 KFGO in Fargo called the Game On Radio Show, and it's me and a young guy named Travis Dunn. He'll like it that I call him a young guy, who was a defenseman on that 1980 University of North Dakota National Championship hockey team, originally from Transcona. It's funny that the one national podcast platform show I do out of Toronto and the one I do out of the United States are both with ex-Winnipeggers. Travis Dunn from Transcona and Kerry Goulet from St. Boniface. But we've expanded now into that American market in terms of radio, and have had some feedback that maybe we could bring the magazine south. And I think that there's going to be some talk about that. I may not be around when that happens. I'm getting very, very close to getting way too old to do this. And young Carter Brooks is coming up, and he's probably pretty close to getting ready to take over. So I think that that's going to come pretty soon. Maybe when COVID ends, we'll make a changing of the guard at the top.
Yeah, and who knows when COVID ends? So I mean, you could be
that's true.
for a longer haul than you might want to. But, obviously Carter Brooks working for you guys. I mean, you guys have built up a team throughout the years. I mean, talk about how nice it's been to see that, how many more people are involved now with Game On Magazine than once it started.
Well, we're still pretty small. I have to say, there's not, I mean, originally Scott Billick was involved. And of course, Scott went on to much bigger and better things. And then Carter came in after Scott had gone on to do actual newspaper work. So it's basically been Carter and me. And then I have some writers, John Plauché, who does the MMJHL mostly, although he's done some MJ stuff for us. And Mary Jane McLennan, who used to work for The Sun and CBC and CTV, who does the KJ for us because she really likes that northern work, and also does the Manitoba Female Hockey League U18, and likes that, has become good friends with a lot of the people involved in that league. And Brooke Jones has started to do some CRJHL stuff for us, but our writing staff and our photography staff has actually gotten a little bit smaller. Photography is really hard in Manitoba when you spend all the money to buy all those lenses and you get to a reasonable size and you're running around and you find you're not making any money at it. And I've had a number of my photographers go off and it's interesting that they all get jobs in IT someplace. I guess it's just their technical skills. Yeah. So I've had a couple of photographers go on and get real day jobs, and that's cost me a couple of guys. But Kerry Lauder and Rusty Barton and Kelly Jacobson and Scott Stroh and our regulars around here have been pretty tremendous. But we're still very, very small. We are a subsidiary of Davis Media Company, a big company in Manitoba that does have an office in New York City because it does a lot of American magazines, what you would call association or technical magazines. They're for big operations like coal mining, heavy equipment. And you know how those work. It's basically the association tells you, here's what your advertising is. We're going to write these stories. You put the magazine together. But this is their first foray into a consumer magazine. I think he's having a lot of fun with it. As a matter of fact, when I was fooling around on my phone before we talked, it was the boss saying, we got to do this, this, and this to get this issue out today. So it's pretty busy, but it's pretty small. There aren't a lot of us involved in this thing, and it's still run off the kitchen table. I have a great story about a photographer that I offered a little bit of money to do some work in Maine when a couple of Manitoba female players were playing in Maine. And so I asked for the photos, and he wrote me back and said, you only pay me this amount of money. You're not a very professional organization. I wrote him back and said, we're not. We're not professional at all. I run this off my kitchen table. Yeah. There is nothing professional about this. We are amateurs doing this thing. And he wrote me back and said, $100 is fine. You can have all the photos you want. I think he was just looking for somebody to be honest with him and let him know exactly what he was getting into. The reality is that we're much more professional now than we were 5, 6, 7 years ago, but we're still run off the kitchen table. And I got to tell you, my boss has made the decision that because of COVID and because of all of the people working from home, that he didn't need the overhead of a downtown office anymore. And as of April 1st, even he is going to work out of his home from now on, because all of us are all working out of our homes. And the people that he has working for him across the United States and the rest of Canada are all working out of their homes anyway. So the world is changing, whether we want it to or not. And we're going to have to get used to this remote working together. And I actually find it pretty good, because you don't waste a lot of time with meetings that can be, let's say, solved by emails.
Yeah. Yeah. Emails. I know that when I've talked to, Brad Kirk, the MFHL president, I always ask him about, how the team meetings, the league meetings have gone. And he's like, they're just basically emails. I'm like, okay. So it's
better now. It's better now. It's better not to be in an office with a bunch of people. You don't waste your time shooting the breeze and drinking coffee. You don't have meetings when you can do it by email. Email solves everything. Emails and phone calls can solve every problem that you have. You don't need a meeting. To me, a meeting is getting together after work for coffee or a couple of drinks. That's what a meeting is. When you're at work, you should be doing work, right?
Yeah.
I don't need anybody telling me that the biggest story in junior hockey right now is probably, the Dauphin Kings is a big story. The Steinbach Pistons are a big story. That big line that the Blues have, that's a big story. I mean, I think we can all figure that out. I don't need the boss to tell me that. So we send a writer out to do that story, and Bob's your uncle, it's done. But the reality is every now and again you need a meeting over money, and you can do that after work.
Yeah, and it also helps. I mean, I'm not the fastest guy taking notes. I mean, for meetings like that, I mean, every bit of the information is there, so you don't really miss a thing with emails, which is great.
Emails work great. You're right.
For sure. Obviously, Scott, you have a lot of experience in the sports media world. I mean, you've been around for a long time doing this. Talk about your background in sports a bit more, touching on that, how it drove you to get into this industry to start off.
Well, I played a lot of sports. I played sports both in high school and at the University of Guelph. I did my first radio sportscast on September 8th, 1968.
Wow.
So that's 54 years ago. That was the first one I ever did. That was at CKJD in Sarnia. And KJD were the initials for Keith Jules Dancy. And if you go back on YouTube, you'll find some old Montreal Canadiens games from the 60s. Danny Gallivan did the play-by-play, and Keith Dancy did the color. And Keith Dancy took all that money he made doing color in Montreal and turned it into radio stations in both Ontario and Quebec. So the first one I worked for was the one with his name on it, CKJD. And I worked with them for a number of years while I was in high school because I was cheap. Boy, I think I made a quarter of a newscast. I think I made 25 cents a sportscast.
Wow.
It wasn't a lot of work. It was sports. So I did that, and then I did stuff through university, and then I came out here in '76 to run the basketball program for the government. It was the old government sport Manitoba in those days. It was called the Manitoba Sports Federation, and it was a breakaway. It was an arm's length association of the province of Manitoba. It was run by a guy named Brian Horton. I came out to work for them, and then ended up at the Free Press because Hal Sigurdsson liked my press releases, and then left there and went to the National Post, and then left the National Post and started Game On, and that's been 54 years of media stuff.
Wow, that's crazy. You started in the industry when my mom was born that year, so quite a while ago there, Scott, that you've been in this.
And that's why I'm closer to retirement than you can imagine.
Right. Makes sense, right? But yeah, I've played hockey throughout my life, played 12 years of minor hockey, and as the years went along, I saw Game On magazine popping up in the arenas. Obviously, you guys can distribute them that way, but I see you guys distributing the issues online as well. Just talk about how this magazine is distributed, to clarify that.
The print magazine is in the arenas across the province. The biggest problem we have is we give it away, and it doesn't last very long. So when people say, well, I didn't see your last issue. Well, where were you? Well, at St. Vital Arena. Well, they're probably gone in a day. They're probably gone in an hour. That's a place where I go myself. I'll take them over, drop them off on the rack, and they'll be gone. I think that the other big problem that we have is getting them out to the north. The north is difficult. The only way we can get them up there is when people come down. I didn't realize it would cost us $900 to ship 5 or 6 boxes. To the Paw and Norway House and Nelson House. So the only way we get them up there is when people show up in Winnipeg from the north to take them with them. But other than that, we're now online. We have about 7,600 subscribers worldwide. Of course, it's the web, and the subscriptions are free. Just go on and sign up, and you can get the magazine there. And if you can't find the magazine anyplace, go to Jets Gear Stores. They are for sale $5 in the Jets Gear Stores. They're at the arena. They're basically for hockey fans that go to the Jets games but don't go to amateur hockey.
Right.
So they sell at the Jets store. And so if you didn't get an issue, you can always get one from Dave Blackmore and all my good friends at the Jets store, and they do a great job there too. So they're everywhere, but the best place to read it is online because it's free and you don't have to leave your room.
Well, there you go. That's that convenience, right? I mean, don't have to leave the room. You get to read about the great stuff that's happening in amateur hockey here in, the province of Manitoba, and, all the other stuff that you guys cover. I think the interesting thing we do is that we do features on players and teams, because everybody knows what the score was last night. You've all got Twitter. Everybody looks at Twitter. Everybody looks at Facebook. Everybody knows
excuse me, pretty much what the news was. Have a little
there you go. I'm going to do this.
water to keep going. Everybody knows what the news was. We try to focus on the young hockey players who are not getting the recognition they deserve. And that's basically the theory behind the whole thing.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's so important to get that media coverage, on these amateur players, because there's a lot of talent in this province. I mean, when you go to the MJHL, the MMJHL, Female Hockey League here, the Manitoba Female Hockey League. I mean, the list goes on and on of how much talent there is in this province. And to see you guys covering it, I mean, the way you guys do is just great to see. Last question before I let you go here, Scott. What's coming up for Game On Magazine? I mean, when are the next issues going to be distributed?
I suspect the next issue will be online today or tomorrow. It should be on the internet today or tomorrow. It'll be printed in about 7 days. And then I'm already working on March. This next issue will have, of course, the all-star Kyle Connor. It will have a good story on Eric Fox of the Blues, a tremendous story on what's going on in the North, both with the Cross Lake Islanders and with the Ocean Storm. We've got a good Ocean Blizzard Pilot-Mound piece that it's amazing, isn't it, that 6 Pilot-Mound players are playing for the Blizzard this year? That's a tremendous story, I think. We have a couple stories on the female players. More than a couple, but 4 or 5 on the female players. And, of course, the 3 players that are off to the Olympics from Manitoba, Ashton Bell and Jocelyn Larocque and Kristen Campbell. This is an action-packed one, about 140 pages. It'll be good fun.
That's awesome, man. Everyone can find it on the website, right? Game On Hockey.
GameOnHockey.ca.
Right on. Well, looking forward to that, Scott. I'll have to take a look at it. I won't read all of it because that's a lot of reading.
It is. It's a lot of reading.
But I'll try to check that out, and excited for it, and I'm sure a lot of people are. So Scott, great to meet you, great to talk to you, and great to know all about what Game On Magazine is, what Game On Hockey is. You take care, and thanks for coming on Manitoba Show Rise and Shine on this Wednesday morning.
Thanks for having me, Graeme. Appreciate it.
Of course, you take care, Scott. And Scott Taylor, editor of Game On Magazine, Game On Hockey, one of the editors for them. And Scott's saying he's close to retirement soon. So, he's been working in the industry for a very long time, the year my mother was born. So that's crazy. That's absolutely insane. But Scott mentioned Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy. Great story for sure. That is going to be released in there, I'm sure. So check them out. Game On hockey.ca is the website where you guys can check out the latest issue that will be coming out very soon. So speaking of Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, like I was saying, we got the goalie coach and marketing director of Pilot-Mound joining the show next, of the Hockey Academy there, and Gordie Tumilson, to talk about the past weekend of games that the teams in the academy played, as well as talking about this week of practice, the goalie meetings that he's having with the goaltenders throughout the academy, and the upcoming weekend of games for Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy coming up this weekend. You're watching Rise and Shine Manitoba Show. Stick around for more with me and the man himself, Gordie Tumilson, after these commercial breaks. Got a I don't know if it's called a graphic or not, but a text down, instead of saying Rise and Shine Manitoba, added Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy in there. It's a Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy segment on this week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba with goalie coach and marketing director Gordie Tumilson of Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, showing off his Buffalo sweater with pride. Of course, Gordie wearing the Buffaloes hat as well. But Gordie, how you doing this week here? Lots to talk about here on the show today, but how are you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Great. It's super. It's weather's been pretty darn good here today, and the games, we got more games coming up. We've had some games this past weekend, and the kids are all feeling pretty good about things. So there you go. We're raring to go again.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there were some cancellations. Take us through that. The games that were canceled for one team in particular in the academy.
Yeah, the U15 guys lost some games this past weekend, and that's too bad. With their COVID and injuries and all sorts of other things going on, it was just best not to play the games and get on with it. The girls played, and the big boys played, and so we'll talk about those. But yeah, there was some disappointment in the U15 program. We were hoping to see it, but those games have been rescheduled to a little bit later in February, and against the Rink Academy. So we'll pick those games up during the midweek, which is different for us. We don't have many midweek games, so that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, some different stuff for sure with the midweek games coming up for the academy here. Going to be interesting to see how those go. But talk about the U17 male prep Buffaloes here, Gordie, or the prep male Buffaloes. I never know exactly what the correct pronunciation would be technically, but for the U17 Buffaloes, they ended up going to Calgary this past weekend, in Alberta. Talk about how that went for the U17s, how their weekend went in Calgary, Alberta.
Well, we got a tie and a couple losses, but the third game was a decent hockey game. We got some quick goals on our starting goalkeeper Miles Gordon on the Sunday game, but we were fortunate that Kean Hodgins got in and sort of slowed things down in the first period, and Miles went back in and pretty much took care of business after that. We lost 4-1 in that game. However, we tied on Friday, which was really good for us. I guess that it was the second game Saturday that we tied on or lost 4-1. We tied on Friday. Haji played a really strong game for us, and in his first game, we got a 2-2 tie out of it, which was really great. He made 50-odd saves, so that was nice. We got kind of beat up in the first game, so that wasn't too good, unfortunately. But playing some good, really, really, really top-notch AAA teams out in Alberta, and they've got more than 1 million people in Edmonton and more than 1 million people in Calgary. And they get the top 20 kids in these two programs. So it's a battle. It's a struggle for anybody that plays them. They're just really good, and that's okay. That's what our guys need. They need to play against the best to set the bar and learn how to play better hockey. As we go along the rest of the season. So it was a decent weekend for us. It was a bit of a struggle in a couple of games, and we got some good games out of our teams in a couple of games as well.
Going over to the U18 prep female program now for Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy. They traveled to Winnipeg on Friday and Saturday, playing a Saturday morning game against the St. Mary's team. They played St. Mary's the day before too, at 4 p.m. So a late afternoon game there, Gordie. But talk about run us through the two games that the U18 prep female Buffalo program had against the St. Mary's team.
Well, I'd only like to talk about one game, but we have to talk about two, unfortunately. I guess our guys didn't show up. Our girls didn't show up on Saturday morning. We got skunked pretty badly. And St. Mary's is a top 5 team in the CSSHL West, and they showed it. I mean, they're just really a top-notch team. They kicked our butts pretty badly in the second game. However, we battled with them on Friday and lost. a pretty close hockey game. It was 4-3 late in the game and a 5-3 loss. We felt pretty good about that hockey game. And, Julie Ducharme played super for us, making about 40 saves and good for her. And our team played a pretty spirited hockey game. We didn't have quite as much oomph on the second game, and St. Mary's threw another gear at us, unfortunately, on Saturday morning. I think sometimes those Friday afternoon games, doesn't matter for which team. Kids have gone to school all week, and they're pretty tired by the time 4 or 5 o'clock shows up on Friday afternoon. And I know that when I coached in AAA back in the early 2000s, our kids would play Saturday or Friday night at 7 o'clock, Winnipeg Hawks, AAA midget at the time, and they'd be tired, and both teams would be tired, and they just coming out of school, and it's just been a long week, and practices, probably 2 or 3 practices, maybe 2 games, and it was just hard for the kids to kind of get themselves up for those Friday afternoon games. But in the meantime, we battled hard, and so we had one good one and one stinky one, and we're back to practice this week. So that's the way that goes.
Talk about the week of practice now, heading into it for the 3 teams in the academy, all 3 teams, the U15s, the U17s, and U18s. What's going to be the focus in this week of practice?
Yeah, well, the U17s didn't practice on Monday. They had a long stretch drive home, so they would get a day off on Monday. But the U15s had a practice on Sunday and again on Monday and here on Tuesday and so there you go. So that's the norm for those guys. The girls practice as well, so on Monday and Tuesday. And again here on Wednesday, you're going to practice again on Wednesday. So it's regular business, getting ready for playoffs, working hard to be in a little better shape, and trying to get them so that they can play 2 or 3, or you're going to have to play a bunch of games in a short order in March in the playoffs. So hopefully they'll play a bunch of games, because that means they're winning some games and able to compete. And that's the only way we're going to compete at all three teams, is if we're in good shape and we're really working together as a 5-person unit on the ice. And so all of that defensive structure in our zone, getting into the lanes, getting your stick in the lanes and all that kind of stuff, not taking too many penalties. That hurts us big time when we play against some of these stronger teams. They move the puck really well, and we have to really, really get moving out there, and sometimes that taxes some of our better players who have to play kind of on both the power play, penalty kill, and a regular shift. So they're kind of beat by the time the game's over. So we're trying to get some more players more involved in some of the special teams, so that our better players can we're not stretching them too far during the hockey game.
Yeah, and of course, this is the first edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba for February. So with playoffs starting up in March, playoffs closer than they've ever have been this season. So going to be, a fun time of the year always when playoffs hits. And, wishing the best of luck to all 3 teams in the academy. Of course, hoping they can make something happen in the playoffs come March. But Gordie, for yourself being the goalie coach, what is on tap for the goalie meetings this week in the academy?
Well, so it's week to week with the goalkeepers. I mean, they first of all they love playing, and they love a challenge, and we have some ups and downs as all teams do and all goalies do. Our kids struggle. A couple of our kids struggled on the weekend. Miles had a bit of a struggling weekend, but came back in his second game. River Johnson, she just by the time the third period hit and the 50-yard shot level hit, she was kind of toast and on the Saturday morning game. So that didn't go as well for her. But in reverse of that, Kean Hodgins and Julie Ducharme had great weekend games. And Hodgie played 2 great games. He had a 3-1 loss in his first game and a 2-2 tie, and made 50 saves in both games. So, it's ups and downs. It's sort of like the old toilet seat thing. It's up, it's down, it's here we go. But But the kids, they're marvelous. They rebound. For me, it's not as easy. I'm on the back nine here in goalie coaching, and I don't have quite as much energy as those kids do, and they just rebound right from one game to the other. But we go over this stuff so that they're not fussing with past games. We go over the goals, we go over the saves, we go over the good stuff and the not so good stuff, and so that's all we do, and we work towards being better each game out and keeping our concentration level up. And being ready for every shot and every play, and that's what we do. And again, one weekend it's this goalie and that goalie, another weekend it's the other guys, and so that's why we have two kids on each team playing, so we look forward to who's going to be the sort of the star on any particular weekend. Sometimes it's both goalies.
Yeah, and obviously having both goalies going, firing on all cylinders is the ideal thing to happen, but always nice if one goaltender isn't doing their best, giving their best stuff, the other goalie stepping up and giving their best stuff, which is great to hear, Gordie. Talking about the upcoming weekend here for the Academy, are all three teams going to be in action this weekend?
Yeah, we got the girls in Delta, BC, playing a bazillion games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think they'll play 3 or 4 games, I think. I don't know. They haven't got the schedule up yet, but it'll be at least 3, probably 4. The young guys, the U15s, they're in at RHA, the rink in Winnipeg, for 3 games on the weekend, Friday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday morning. So we've got that good, and then our U17 guys are playing at home in Pilot-Mound for a change. That's always nice. They're playing Prairie Hockey Academy. We haven't played those guys since late October, early November, so it's been a while since we've played those people. And we're competitive certainly against those guys. So we're looking forward to those 2 games Saturday at 7:00, and hoping we'll see ASTV there, of course, and then again on Sunday at noon. So there you go. We're gonna see you, Graeme.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I'd like to think some from ASTV will be there, and the way that'll happen is no cancellations due to COVID. So crossing my fingers, Gordie, that we can see some home games for the Academy coming up this weekend. And if I am there, Gordie, I'll see you over the weekend. But if not, we'll do this thing that we always do on Rise and Shine Manitoba's show, having you on for an interview once again next week. But until then, Gordie, you stay safe, and until the next time we see each other, you take care.
You got it. Thanks, Graeme.
Gordie Tumilson, goalie coach and marketing director of Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, joining the show on this Wednesday morning, hoping to be in Pilot-Mound this weekend, unless there's cancellations due to COVID-19. Hopefully that does not happen. And we finally get to get back to Blackjack Stewart Arena. It's been a very long time for myself personally, so looking forward to that if it is a go, but we all know the uncertainty that COVID-19 has brought for Pilot-Mound and their home games to start off the new year here in 2022. So, can't wait to talk to Gordie about, how the teams did next week and all the good stuff like the week of practice, the goalie meetings, and the upcoming weekend of games for next week's edition of the show. But, that's going to do it for our interview portion of Rise and Shine Manitoba today. Hope you guys enjoyed them. We had some great guests on the show here today, and Harry Siemens and Scott Taylor of Game On Magazine, and of course, as you guys just saw, Gordie Tumilson. But coming up now, it's time for the opinionated segment here. Graeme's opinion coming up here first with Seth Rach. We're going to be talking about the Winnipeg Jets, their past 3 games, as well as some other stuff in the NHL, and also talking about Team Canada's men's hockey Olympic rosters. The Olympics are set to kick off very, very soon. So you're watching Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions. Everybody stick around for more Graeme's opinion coming up after this commercial break.
Hello, my name is Loretta Mitchell, owner of Evolve Green, And here at Evolve Green, we take the environment very seriously. We have a 10 kilowatt solar system that offsets our main facility by 75%, as well as maintaining natural prairie on our grounds. Our mission, creating renewables that work for you. I started Evolve Green in 2008 with a passion for the environment and wanting to change my corner of the world. And that remains the same today. Through design, consult, and installation, we provide renewable energy systems and storage integration. Here at Evolve Green, we help Canadians rethink power and storage to help fortify our children's future. To learn more, visit evolvegreen.ca.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well on this Wednesday morning. Of course, we are 59 minutes away from hitting the afternoon here, hitting noon. So, probably going to go way over that time limit here because there's a lot to talk about today in Graeme's opinion. Seth Rach will be joining the show in just a moment. But gotta say, when I go solo, I'll be talking about the NFL, but I'll be talking about something else that I'm going to get pretty emotional on, I'm sure. But joining the show now is Seth Rach, of course, here on the first part of the two parts that we do here on Graeme's Opinion. Well, that I do here on Graeme's Opinion. The first part being with Seth Rach. Seth, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, man? Great to see you as always here on this weekly segment, my segment, Graeme's Opinion.
Yeah, I'm doing good. And I gotta tell you one thing. I'm pretty interested to hear what you're pretty emotional about. So I'm definitely gonna be tuning in later. Just gonna let you know that now.
Oh man, Seth, it's going to be pretty hard to contain my emotion when I'm talking about this. I'll give you a hint, Seth. It is to do with Bell Media. Of course, I want to make it clear to everybody that my views on Bell Media are my own and they don't associate with the views that ASTV Productions have. I just want to make that clear. But yeah, Seth, you might be in for a treat. It's going to be pretty interesting segment, part of the segment to end off the show. But, let's get into the present. What we'll be talking about right now is the Winnipeg Jets, ended up winning a game against the St. Louis Blues on Saturday, which was a very nice thing to see. But we've kind of been all over the place, getting, handed to us by the Vancouver Canucks last Thursday, losing last night against the Jets lost last night against the Philadelphia Flyers 3-1 after being up 1-0 early in that game. Just talking about these past three games, Seth, your thoughts on the Jets play.
Yeah, if we're excluding the one against Vancouver, I think they've been actually pretty good. It's, even up to as yesterday, the team playing good, and then there are just a few unlucky bounces, and then the other team the Flyers got a few goals, and it's kind of a theme like last week. I think it's been a little bit unfortunate for the Jets, except for that game against Vancouver. That was just a really bad game in all facets. But we did end up getting the win and breaking the 6-game losing streak against St. Louis, but then we lost again last night. So there's not really too much to be really excited about it so far.
Yeah, and Eric Comrie got the start, and he was really good against St. Louis. The Jets only allowed one goal in that game, and that came on the power play. They scored 4 unanswered after that. The Jets actually got a break in that game to start off their goal scoring when Jordan Kyrou ran into one of his own teammates, or I forget if his teammate ran into him, but that allowed Stastny to pick up the loose puck and put it in the net, which was nice to see the Jets finally get a break because they were hitting some posts, unfortunately, against Vancouver. But looking at these past three games, I feel like it's just a continuation of the Jets doing some good things in the offensive zone, like getting chances offensively. There's been some times when they've been getting a lot of shots from the outside. But overall, I mean, in the last 2 games, I feel like the Jets are doing a much better job of getting into those high danger scoring areas. I mean, getting more chances offensively, winning possession of the puck, moving the puck around well, and winning those battles more. But it's crazy. They actually outshot Vancouver in that game 34-33. I just feel like, the missed assignments, leaving guys open, bad line changes, getting outplayed in the D zone, giving up chances in the slot was a huge thing. I think that was a huge thing yesterday, too. If you look at it, the Jets were giving up a lot of chances out in front and really had some trouble at times clearing that puck away. And I feel like those are just some things that are continuing to plague the Jets. Is you do a lot of good things right, but there's a lot of bad that also comes with that. And the bad has been outweighing the good, unfortunately, in these last 9 games, really, except for the game against St. Louis.
Yeah, I completely agree with you too. And, I think a factor to that has probably been that the Jets have been extremely shorthanded, especially on the defense side. Missing so many key guys that are normally in the lineup definitely hurts. And, some of the young guys that have stepped in have really struggled. And one guy that I thought, he was pretty good in the game against St. Louis, but in the games against Philly and Vancouver, I didn't think Ville Heinola definitely showed that he wasn't really ready yet to handle NHL minutes. And Johnny Kovacevic as well, those simple plays, turning pucks over a little bit, and just not being quite ready for the NHL game yet. And you can see that in their play. But, the Jets defensive lineup, they just sent down 7 guys this morning, actually. So it's a good news that the defense is starting to, come back and be ready to play again.
I did not see that. Who are the 7 guys that got sent down?
Leon Gavanka, Christian Reichel. I should probably pull it up here. I'm just going off of muscle memory, and I probably won't be able to remember that. But, I'll pull it up here.
Yeah, this is news to me. Honestly, I haven't been on social media all day, so I haven't seen any reports or anything. But interesting. So Reichel got sent down. He hasn't been in the lineup at all, really, in the last few games, eh?
Yeah. Here are the players that were sent down. Okay, Mikey Estimont, Christian Reichel, and then the defensemen Declan Chisholm, Leon Gavanka, Jonathan Kovacevic, and Ville Heinola were all sent down, as long as Mikhail Burden.
See, you know what? I'm going to say this. Obviously, like these guys like Ville Heinola and Johnny Kovacevic, obviously these are guys that are young in the lineup, right? Yeah. And haven't really had much time to play. But I honestly think they've been doing some good things. I like how they've activated with our forwards into the I think that's a huge thing, because I think a problem with the Jets sometimes is, yes, they can move around the puck well in the offensive zone, but I think once you got more of that unit support, all 5 guys being active in the zone, I think that's a huge part of getting more offensive chances. I think, yesterday, obviously, Ville Heinola jumping up into the play on the offensive zone. It was a bad pass by Pierre-Luc Dubois there to him that ended up going the other way. And obviously, having a defenseman pinch, that's not the ideal situation. But I think another big thing is the Jets just having that awareness to know if a guy goes up, gets caught out of his position, have to switch back. And that's just a simple assignment there that I feel like the Jets had to be on, was just seeing Ville Heinola jump up into the play there. And then you got to have a forward, the high guy, coming back and for supporting him. The Jets unfortunately didn't do that, and that led to the second goal, the game-winning goal that ended up being scored by James Van Riemsdyk. But I will say this, I do like Kovacevic's game. I like the potential that he brings in terms of the shot he has. He's physical, and he's a guy that he's not afraid to rush the puck up. And I like that in a young guy, because that shows he has some confidence. I think Ville Heinola, as the game has gone along, as his games have gone along here with the short time he had with the Jets, was doing a better job of settling down a bit, not panicking as much with the puck, and making some really good outlet passes and some really good stretch passes. Now, has there been struggles? Obviously there has been, but that's going to come with these young guys. It's going to be interesting to see if they get another shot in the lineup coming up this year. But, with the injuries that the Jets have had, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys, a guy like Ville Heinola especially, gets called up again.
Yeah, and he was on the team for a very long time too. If we don't forget that, he's been on the team for over a month playing with the Jets. He just has been practicing for the majority of it, not getting any ice time. And I think you're right. They were making some good plays, and I really liked how many shot attempts that Jonathan Kovacevic had. Whenever they would be in the offensive zone, he'd be like the puck. They'd be the guy they'd send the puck back to generate a shot. And I think he did a really good job of that, like you said. And Ville Heinola getting better at making those passes. And I will agree with you. Yeah, the first few games he was in, he looked lost a bit in the defensive zone. Like he didn't really know which man to pick up. He didn't know where his assignment was. But as the days have gone on, he has gotten better at that. And I do agree with you on that one.
And you know what I like about Ville Heinola's game as well is just his stick work. I think that he's very good at batting, those loose pucks, those rebounds away into safe areas. I think that's been a strong thing that he's shown. Obviously, the guy isn't the biggest defenseman, but this guy, I think his appeal to his game is just he's a good puck moving defenseman, a guy that's very smart out there, and a guy that I think has shown some smarts throughout his time being with the Jets. Who else has been phenomenal and keeps being phenomenal, in my opinion, has been Cole Perfetti. And not often do I agree with Craig Button's opinion and some of the guys on TSN, but Craig Button said best. I mean, something that we've been preaching is just the creativity that he shows is something that's really strong in Cole Perfetti's game, and I think it's something that's been continuing. And I think that line has honestly been the most effective line, and I think a lot of people would agree with it that line has been the Jets' best line 100%.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the crazy thing is two guys that were called up are staying with the team in that massive. All the Jets just sent down a bunch of players, and Austin Pagansky and Cole Perfetti, two players I think have been playing pretty well with where they've been playing, are staying up on the team, which is a very good thing to see. And yeah, Cole Perfetti, the creativity, especially on some of the passing plays he's made over the past few games, have been very, very just awesome to watch as a Jets fan, and seeing that him growing and him getting better and better. When he first started up on the team, you could tell that he was a little bit nervous to be out there and he wasn't playing his best hockey. But now, as he's getting more used to the team and more used to his teammates and more used to the NHL game, you can see how much he's growing and how fast he's growing as well.
Yeah, and that's just the thing, right? These young guys coming into the lineup that haven't had that experience before, you're only going to get better as the time goes along. These are extremely gifted, talented hockey players, and the more NHL minutes they have, I think the better that it is. And Cole Perfetti, I think one thing that is, I think we're seeing a lot more of now is him being more confident in taking those shots. I mean,
yeah,
that's really good shots yesterday. And to see him getting more comfortable, really, continuing to thrive on that line, in my opinion, with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, who have been the Jets' best forwards throughout the season. I mean, Kyle Connor going to the All-Star game this year for the Jets. I'm excited to see, like I've said before, the future of what Cole Perfetti is going to bring to this team.
Yeah, and like you said, and even he's taking more shots. That's the main thing I also noticed when he was in his first few games. He wasn't taking too many shots. He was, when he get the puck, he'd just get rid of it right away, it seemed like. But now he's working with the puck a little bit more. He's taking those shots, like you said, and he's just he's started to make all the right plays, especially in the offensive zone. His offensive play is getting better and better every game, and it seems like one of these days he's just going to break out with a 5-point game, and it's going to be like this has been the Cole Perfetti we've had the whole time.
Yeah, it's the reason he got drafted 10th overall to the Winnipeg Jets, right? I'm pretty sure he fell in that draft, if I'm not mistaken, to the Jets. I think there was some people thinking that he might have gone higher, but, I'm so excited to have him. I mean, I've heard some people, one guy in particular, my buddy Marty Firth, saying he wishes the Jets drafted Jarvis. Obviously, being a Winnipeg boy, that would have been pretty cool. It's actually cool. His father is a coach. I think he coaches the hockey team or the football team. I forget off the top of my head, at Dakota Collegiate here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So that's pretty darn cool to see a guy like that getting NHL minutes as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. And, that just goes to show you how good the drafts are getting now and how every draft pick is so important, because these guys, like, if we're talking this was 10 years ago, half these guys aren't even playing in the NHL yet. But now, since the game has changed so much to speed and skill, these young guys are, playing almost as soon as they get drafted. They're getting like 9 or 10 NHL games at least in their rookie season, and they're getting chances to prove themselves earlier than they would have, like I said, 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that, just like you said, the game is changing. I mean, the skill in the game has never been higher, in my opinion. I don't think I pronounced higher in my opinion. Just, you look at the creativity of so many guys out there now, like a guy like Trevor Zegers, for example.
Feels like he's scoring a highlight goal every week.
Unbelievable things this season. But I think that also comes down to teams, knowing that they got to get these players in the lineup more, getting them developed at an early age, getting them more used to the NHL than before. And I mean, you could still soak guys in the AHL and in junior, but I think getting these guys up in NHL minutes, especially if your franchise is struggling, I mean, why not give guys a shot? We saw what happened for Montreal last season when they put Cole Caulfield into the lineup in the playoffs. He was outstanding in the playoffs for them. I mean, I just feel like that's a blueprint, like you said, that I think more franchises are starting to follow, and it's nice to see the Jets are finally doing that and putting their young guys in the lineup and giving them the shot, even though they aren't always staying in the lineup and not always staying with the club.
Yeah, and it's just very exciting if I think about it. And I think in like Seth Jarvis's case, Anton Lundell's case, these guys are lucky. They're going to probably go on deep playoff runs because they're on such good teams. Like, if you're Anton Lundell playing in your first year and Seth Jarvis, you guys are, I know this isn't Winnipeg Jets at all, but like, I just keep thinking about these guys, like, they're going to make the playoffs. And what if they win what if they get a chance to win the Stanley Cup in their first year of professional hockey? It just kind of boggles my mind a little bit just thinking about that.
That's crazy. And going back to Seth Jarvis, like, this is a guy that was dominant in the AHL last season before he got, I think he was forced to get sent back down to the junior ranks because of some rule that's out there. But, a guy that at such a young age already, dominated the AHL. Obviously, the AHL and NHL are different animals, but he's also been doing really good in Carolina this season. And I mean, to see the youth, coming into this league and being effective is really nice to see, I gotta say.
Yeah, me too. It's just the league is just getting more exciting every year. And I don't know, maybe in 10 years from now, we might see every player in the first round be playing full NHL seasons in their first year. Who knows?
Well, who knows? The game might be so evolved in the near future, maybe way past when we're gone. We might have a team from the moon or from Mars, Seth?
Oh, yeah, probably. This league is going to get there's not going to be enough players. They're going to have to make like 10 more NHL teams, and then it's going to be even more interesting.
Well, we could get teams from China, Japan. I don't know. This guy's doing Europe teams in there. That'd be crazy to see. Could you imagine if every single league just merged into one? How much of a crap show that would be? That'd be
awful.
That would be awful. I'm just kidding around, of course. But talking about the Jets, their upcoming games, they are playing not until next Tuesday against the Minnesota Wild, and then their next 5 matchups, actually, Seth, are against Central Division opponents, which is huge because in terms of where the Jets are right now, 6th place in the Central Division. You look at it, 2-6-2 in their last 8 games. We're getting down to crunch time here for a playoff and the Jets. Hopefully they can use this time off to recoup and regenerate and be able to, try to find their game once again, but it will be interesting to see. Of course, Seth, this will be the end of our Jets talk today. We'll start talking about a trade deadline coming up next week, I'd say. Start getting into it because the trade deadline, I feel like, is coming up soon here. But let's talk about it. Obviously, the Calder Trophy, always a fun discussion of who, people think is Rookie of the Year. In your opinion, a lot of good rookies this year. Obviously, you got Trevor Zegras, Lucas Raymond, Anton Lundell has been really good this season for the Florida Panthers. But in your opinion, who do you think will win the Calder once the season ends at this point?
See, I just for me with a lot of these trophies, I don't really like how they're awarded every year. Obviously, the rookie award or the Calder, you can't really. It's pretty like the rookie of the year awards is the easiest one to just hand out. Obviously, the rookie with the most points always wins it. But I'm going to probably go off the board a little bit. I don't know. A lot of people won't say this is off the board. A lot of people will. It's depending on your opinions. But I would go with Anton Lundell just because of his complete game that he already plays at this level. And, he's been putting up points, and he's also good defensively at such a young age. I don't know. Out of all the players in the league right now, I don't think he wins it. I think it probably goes to Trevor Zegras. But, my pick personally is Anton Lundell.
That's a good pick. And, he's going to have a lot of years to be able to play behind, Barkov, who we know, like, as everyone knows, won the Selke last year, right? But yeah, I'm going to go with the obvious one, and it's Trevor Zegras. I think just the skill that he's shown out there, just his creativity that he's shown, really making his teammates better out there this season has been something special, especially for a guy that, if you look at his career games played so far, I mean, coming into this year, like, the guy played let's see here, only 24 games last season. So he's getting more of a shot this year to be in the lineup, obviously playing in 42 games. Anaheim is in a playoff position, and he's second on the team in points. I don't know where he is at in terms of the leaders, in terms of the rookies this season, but he's been such a valuable part of the Anaheim Ducks this season in terms of their offensive output. I mean, 20 assists for him on the season, 12 goals for 32 points, second on the team, only behind Troy Terry. I mean, the youth on that team, the talent this team has for years to come is going to be insane. Ridiculous, insane. But yeah, I got to go with Trevor Zegras. And to pair it with, he's made some very special plays this season, as we've seen. This week. I mean, this week too, very highlight reel player that's on full display this season for the Anaheim Ducks.
He's the next Connor McDavid. Just every goal he scores is going to be a highlight reel goal.
I think in terms of the highlight reels, I'm not sure about the skill, because I think Connor McDavid's skill set is just so unique in terms of no one plays like Connor McDavid. But, maybe no one plays like Trevor Zegras either, because
a lot of people are like, I'm a little bit different on that opinion. I think there's a lot of players that are similar to McDavid, just they don't have it they're not as highly skilled as him. Obviously, a player that I kind of compare to McDavid a little bit, and a lot of people are going to call me biased for this, but I think Kyle Connor, the way he skates with the puck and the way he moves with the puck is similar to McDavid. I just think McDavid's better at it, and I think that's how a lot of players are with McDavid. They're similar to him, but he's just better than they are.
Yeah, I think that's the distinction. Like, you could have some similarities to McDavid in your game, but just his skill is far and beyond like what any player is in the league, and it's something that I don't think we've ever seen, just the high skill that he's shown.
Yeah.
And, I definitely could see that point, how there are some similarities with some players out there in terms of how their game could match up with Connor McDavid. Seth, obviously, there's a lot of good teams in this league this season, like every year. And, you talk about teams like the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, Carolina, the Hurricanes, Pittsburgh really coming on as of late, the New York Rangers. You look at the Colorado Avalanche, the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, the list goes on and on of how many good teams there are in this league. But I want to bring it to this question, because this, I feel like, is going to end up being a matchup in the playoffs when the time comes, both teams being in the Atlantic, and both teams top three in the league right now in terms of overall standings. But the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning, the Florida Panthers being the first place team in the league right now by 1 point over the Colorado Avalanche. But who would you take in a playoff series this year, the upcoming Florida Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning to go farther in the playoffs? Of course, Tampa Bay being the back-to-back Stanley Cup champs.
Oh, man, it's tough. I want to say Florida, but I can't. I'll go Tampa Bay again. I think Florida, when they win a playoff series, they got to beat not Tampa Bay Lightning. they got to play Toronto. Let's be honest. I think they'd beat Toronto. I don't think they'd beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and I gotta say I'm on Tampa Bay too. I mean, you look at it, like, obviously this team did lose some depth, during the off season, but that was to be expected with just their cap issues, right? You couldn't keep absolutely everybody, but I think they got, starting with their personnel, one of the best coaches in the league in John Cooper. I mean, this guy was selected to be Team Canada's coach for the Olympics originally, even though, you could put a lot of coaches in that situation that are very good and they'd have some good success. But John Cooper, I think that's a telling sign of him getting picked. I mean, a back-to-back Stanley Cup winning coach. But in my opinion, you got the best goaltender in the world still. In my opinion, you got, when he's at the top of the game, maybe the best winger in the league. Steven Stamkos has been on another one this season. You got Braden Point, so you got the center depth. Your defense is very solid as well. And just looking at the stats here, I mean, the high danger scoring chances that this team has, they generate the most high danger scoring chances in the league. They control the puck at a very high level. This is a team that, sure, their special teams are middle of the pack this season, but we know how good the special teams can be for Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And in terms of their shots against per game, this is a team that doesn't allow many shots per game. And I think even if they do allow a lot of shots in the playoffs against a team like Florida, that is going to be buzzing and coming. I think Vasilevsky will be up to the test again. I just think that this Tampa team still has that experience. And I think that Florida will give them a run in the playoffs. Yeah. But I think that Tampa Bay, until they get knocked off their throne, you can't bet against them at this point because they've proven it the past 2 seasons, and they still got the key pieces like Kucherov. You talk about Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Andre Palat as well. That top 6 is still one of the best, as good as any, and their depth, even though it isn't the like last year, they still got good depth on this.
I'd say it's still good, yeah.
I'd give the depth in terms of the forwards to Florida. I think that's the deepest forward group in the league. But if I'm going overall team, I'm still going with the Tampa Bay Lightning to win the Cup.
And I think it would be a closer series, even though that other series was, close for the most part. I'd say this one probably would go 7. But then again, I just think Tampa Bay, I think Florida needs an easier matchup in the first round for them to finally climb out of that. And like I said, I'm a big Toronto hater, so I would like it if they played Toronto in the first round and beat them. But we'll wait come April and we'll see what happens when April hits.
Well, this would be the second round matchup at this point if both teams won in the Atlantic.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I still do see Tampa being that team. I mean, until they get knocked off their throne. I mean, there's still a very complete team with one of the best coaches in the league, in my opinion. And I think that's also another thing. Brunette or is it Burnett or Brunette for the Florida Panthers?
Andrew Brunette.
Andrew Brunette, yes. He's done a great job coming in.
Oh, yeah.
But, playoffs are different, and John Cooper has that experience. And I think that even though, it comes down to more of the talent that you have, I think coaching is such an important part in this game. And no one knows how to win better in the playoffs in these last 2 seasons than a guy like John Cooper, who the Tampa Bay Lightning have.
Yeah, and, there are very few coaches in the league that can rival him, except for Mike Sullivan, Pittsburgh's head coach. They won 2 cups in a row with him behind the bench as well. So, you never know. What if that's an Eastern Conference final matchup? It's just interesting to see what the possibilities of what we could get in the playoffs.
Oh, it's going to be so exciting. Like, man, you got Carolina. I mean, New York, who's been great this season. I'm talking about the Rangers, not the Islanders. They've been pretty huge.
Poor Islanders.
But the Pittsburgh Penguins, like Tristan Jarry is playing at an insane level right now. And that is something that team has not had in the past 2 playoff runs not runs that they've had, but playoff appearances that they've had. And that team, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, you look at the West, Colorado obviously looking to finally get over that hump, but then you got teams like Vegas, who is going to be fully loaded come playoff time. You'd have to think, you look at a team that you call your dark horse, Minnesota, who I think has a lot of the right pieces to do something in the playoffs as well. it's going to be very fun. I'm the most excited for these playoffs this season, even though we are still months away from it, than I have been in a very long time in the NHL.
And it's so weird too. Like it feels like every week or every month, my predictions to who makes the finals changes. Right now, I'm looking actually at a Carolina Minnesota final, but I don't know. Anything can happen, and I just hope we don't get a final between Vegas and Toronto, because then I would never watch hockey ever again.
Oh man, Toronto, what's going to happen with them this season? I mean, you got all the talent in the world offensively. I mean,
I bet they win around this year.
Jack Campbell's been great too, but I mean, you got to go up against either Tampa or Florida in that first round, most likely. So that's a pretty tough ask, especially when hasn't been able to make it over the hump. But we'll talk more about playoff predictions coming up later in the year, of course, Seth. But talking about Team Canada's Olympic team, the men's hockey team, that their roster that they selected. Heard that Eric Staal is going to be the captain. I mean, some old ex-NHLers on this team. I wouldn't say old, but ex-NHLers on this team. I mean, some young guys on this team like Mason McTavish and Owen Power as well. But looking at it with no NHLers, I feel like Russia will probably be the toughest team to beat because they get to get people from the KHL to come and play. But how do you see Canada faring in the Olympics this year with this roster?
I gotta say, I do like it a lot better than their 2018 Olympic roster, and that's just because to me there's a lot more noticeable players and players I recognize on this team, and I think they got some great leaders, like you said Eric Staal. There's David Desharnais, who is once a very good NHL player. There's Jason Demers, who just last year was a very good defenseman. There are a few guys on this team that I recognize, and I think one of the goalies, Eddie Pasquale, I think his name is. I'm pretty sure he used to play for the Manitoba Moose. So, Winnipeg Jets legend.
Go Moose, baby. Go Moose. Represent, no doubt about it. But I just got to pull up the roster here because honestly, I got to take another look at it. Looking at it, like you got a former NHLer and Daniel Winnick on the team. David Desharnais, like you talked about. Jordan Wheel, it's a legendary name. Josh Hosang is on this team as well. Who else? Eric Staal, of course. But I do like the additions that they put in with their young guys. I mean, you talk about a guy like Owen Power who looks so good at the World Junior Championships. I mean, he's a guy that had a chance to, I believe, play at the World Championships.
Yeah, and at the end of that tournament, he was getting the most amount of minutes out of any defenseman.
So this is a very skilled defenseman already that I think is going to be a nice addition to this Olympic roster. I really love the game of Mason McTavish. I mean, that guy is just electrifying in the offensive zone. And I don't know if this team will win gold, but I think they have a good chance to medal just looking at all the rest of the competition. I don't know. I haven't seen Russia's roster, but I'd have to think that they would probably be considered the favorite in this tournament because of
more than likely,
the talent that they can bring from the KHL. So I see Canada in that top three in the medal. I'm not going to in the medal rounds. I don't think that they, I'm not going to say that they're going to win gold or not, but I definitely see this team being able to medal with the talent that they have, the experience that they have. And I also like their coaching staff as well with Claude Julien out there.
I'm pretty sure Claude Julien isn't going anymore.
He's not going?
They got former Chicago Blackhawks head coach as their new head coach. It just happened yesterday, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that shows how up to date I'm keeping up with this Olympic roster. I mean, so many things going on, Seth. I mean, with ASTV and just watching the Jets fall apart and just trying to keep tabs on the rest of the NHL, also following all the stuff that's going on.
Pretty tough, yeah.
There's a lot going on in the sports world right now. It's
Tom Brady retiring.
Yeah, Tom Brady retiring. Gonna get into that when you sign off on the show, which is just nuts because Seth, like Tom Brady, I'll just say this, has been playing since he's been playing since 2001, the year I've been born. Like the year
before I was even born.
Like, that's before you were born. Like he's been it's nuts. And the thing is, he could have kept playing. because he had one of his best seasons ever. But that's a segment, that's a topic that I'll get into in just a moment. But Seth, always nice to have you here on Rise and Shine Manitoba, buddy. Always nice to be able to do this part of the segment with you. We'll be talking some more Jets hockey next week. Only one game to report on next week because they aren't playing until next Tuesday.
Hopefully it's a win.
Hopefully a win, but playing the Minnesota Wild, I'm not.
Oh no.
I am not. I don't have the highest of expectations at this point, but I do hope that they can use this break to turn it around somehow. This week-long break that they have before they go up against 5 Central.
I think they just need to go out with a dirty style mentality. Just go out and aim for the head on every hit, and you should be able to win the game.
Yeah, go for the head, get some suspies, and there you go.
Especially whenever you see that Kirill Kaprizov right in the head.
Right there. Yeah. Maybe do some other unspeakable things as well. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens in that game, and we'll be me and Seth Rach will be talking about it. But Seth, can't wait to talk about the Jets and all the other stuff that we usually talk about here on the segment. It was fun as always, but until next Wednesday, man, until I guess tomorrow night, actually, when I see you for Seth's Inside Scoop, we'll see each other soon, man. You take care.
Yeah, you too.
Always a blast here on Graham's Opinion with Seth Rach. And coming up after the commercial break, everybody, I am going to be talking about the NFL, Tom Brady's retirement, which is just nuts for that to happen, but that it did happen. I'm also going to talk about my Colts. I heard some news about, their quarterback, Carson Wentz, potentially being the new Bucs quarterback next season. The odds could be very high on that, and that could be interesting if that happens. But, I'll also be talking about the Washington football team, who are now called the Washington Commanders. Pretty crazy to see that they finally decided on a name. Is it a good name? Is it a bad name? Do I like it? Do I not? You'll find out after. And also going to be talking about something that I might get pretty emotional on in my rant. That's coming up on Graham's Opinion here on ASTV Productions on Manitoba Show, Rise and Shine Manitoba. Stick around for more after the commercial break. Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba, everybody. Manitoba's show here on ASTV Productions. And as you can tell, I stumbled my words there. This is about the time in our weekly newscast, I guess we call the show that I start stumbling my words. But Seth Rach joining the first part of this week's edition of Graham's Opinion. And lots to talk about in the NFL today. And I forgot to mention this. This is part 2, by the way, of Graham's Opinion, where I go solo and talk about the NFL. And I will be also giving a rant at the end of this episode, which I'll get into more detail on. I already gave a hint. I already said what I'll be talking about, really, but I'll go more into depth about what exactly I'll be talking about to do with a certain company. But lots to talk about. Of course, Tom Brady retiring from the NFL, which is insane. The Colts quarterback situation, I'll also be talking about as well. The Washington football team, now the Washington Commanders. But before I get into that, I totally forgot. It's time to talk about the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship game. And boy, it sucks to be wrong once again about my Super Bowl pick, because I had the Chiefs going all the way and winning the Super Bowl this year. I thought that they were going to truly make it this season, but that wasn't the case. Joe Burr, Joe Shiesty, Joe Super Bowl Joe, Joe franchise, whatever you want to call him, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals ended up taking care of business against the Kansas City Chiefs and beating them in overtime, sending the defending AFC champion and Super Bowl finalist from last year home before they made it to the Super Bowl. But looking at this game, I mean, Patrick Mahomes was doing his thing early on in this game, in the first half of this game, throwing for 3 touchdowns, making some unbelievable plays. I mean, on his second TD pass, that scramble, his ability to create more time for himself in the pocket and able to evade the defenders and find a teammate in the end zone was great. I mean, Tyreek Hill had a heck of a first half, 78 yards and a TD. Travis Kelce also had a TD, and I believe Byron Pringle also had a TD as well. But they could not sustain it in this game. The Kansas City Chiefs could not. It ended up being a 27-24 final in this game. Kansas City was up 21-10 after the first half. And yeah, it was McCole Hardman ended up getting a TD pass from Patrick Mahomes. But a lot of people have said that they thought that the momentum shifted after the Chiefs were unable to score at the end of the first half. And I do kind of agree with that, because Patrick Mahomes really did not look the same after the game, after that first half. But to be fair, the Cincinnati Bengals did some really good things offensively, not offensively, obviously offensively, but defensively. First off, I'll talk about that. I mean, being able to cover the way they did, keep Mahomes running, and not being able to come away with a positive play, getting sacked a lot of the times. I mean, there were some times where I think Patrick Mahomes was second guessing himself in this game. And I think that was kind of, indicative at some of the times last year in the Super Bowl when, yes, the play calling wasn't the best. And I don't think the play calling was the best in this game at times, the way they managed their offense. But I think there were some times when Patrick Mahomes missed his opportunities. Just looking back at the game film, there were some wide open guys, but he waited that split second before passing the ball, and then boom, those lanes were covered. I think that Cincinnati ended up rattling him, and that's something that nobody really saw from Mahomes outside of the one interception he threw against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So yeah, Cincinnati did a wonderful job defensively in that second half, really shutting down this Chiefs offense, and they only ended up getting a field goal, and that was the field goal to tie it. They almost ended up not even getting to overtime in this game, but the Bengals able to storm back and make the Chiefs force overtime. The Chiefs getting the ball first in overtime, and Patrick Mahomes with a brutal first pass. The second pass he threw was way behind his receiver and should have been picked, but it was not. And then the last pass he made, I mean, he threw it up. He put it in the place where Tyreek Hill could get it, but the defender for the Bengals getting a hand on it behind Tyreek Hill, and they ended up getting a one-handed interception, and then they go down, the Bengals did, and McPherson, the kicker for the Cincinnati Bengals, the best kicker, in the playoffs. I think, in my opinion, the best kicker left. They put him in well enough. They put him in well close enough for him to be able to kick that field goal and send Cincinnati to the Super Bowl, first time since I believe 1988. But yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, for them to be able to come back in this game, I think the biggest reason why was just their defense being able to stop Patrick Mahomes, but also Joe Burrow, I mean, doing his thing. For him to be able to make it to the Super Bowl in his second season in the league with as much expectation was on him. But honestly, people didn't really expect the Cincinnati Bengals team to make it. I don't think anyone predicted the Cincinnati Bengals, maybe Bengals fans at the start of the season because they were hopeful, and maybe the odd person did, but I don't think anyone saw this happening after Cincinnati won 4 games last season. Joe Burrow went out for the season last year with a torn ACL. I'm not sure if he had a torn MCL as well, but yeah, I mean, for him to come back in his second year, with them adding Jamar Chase, which I thought it was a great draft pick for them to get Joe Burrow's former teammate, one of the best, if not the best, receivers in college football, in Jamar Chase. I mean, people are like, oh, you should have got Sewell at O-line. And like, yeah, like he is touted to be a generational O-lineman, but you get a explosive receiver and a guy that Joe Burrow has some familiarity with. I mean, you can't really pass up on that guy. I believe Joe Burrow wanted him too. I mean, and he is going to win Rookie of the Year now, in my opinion, Jamar Chase. But for Joe Burrow to do what he's done this season, establishing himself, in my opinion, as a top 5 QB in this league for this season particularly, I think he'll keep it up too. He's only going to get better. In his second season after this team went 4 wins last season, I don't know how many losses they had, but I know they had 4 wins. For them to be in the Super Bowl, for them to go on the road in 2 of these games and be in the top 2 seeds in the AFC, I mean, it's simply remarkable to see this story happening with Cincinnati. And just so happy for their fan base, honestly, for Cincinnati after all the years of mediocrity and struggles that they've had. I mean, for them to finally make it and have a very good chance to win the Super Bowl is just amazing. I mean, you take a look at what Joe Burrow did in this game, 23 for 38. He did throw an interception, but 2 passing touchdowns, 250 yards. But it wasn't just that. Joe Burrow, 5 rushes for 25 yards, escaping what seemed like he was going to be brought down by sacks, but extending plays with his legs. I mean, he was the all-around package in that game and has been for the Cincinnati Bengals all season long. I mean, Jamar Chase in this game was getting double-teamed, I think triple-teamed at times. But, I mean, he still had a TD, one of the 2 TDs for this team, and 6 receptions for 54 yards. And you know, I don't want to hear anyone taking anything away from the Cincinnati Bengals just because the Chiefs couldn't finish the job. The Cincinnati Bengals did what no team in the playoffs has been able to do, and what many teams have struggled with doing, is shutting down a Chiefs offense in the playoffs, other than what Tampa Bay was able to do last year in the Super Bowl. But the Cincinnati Bengals did what they did again, beating the Chiefs in an absolute thriller like they did in the regular season back in Week 17. So long to Patrick Mahomes, I guess. I still think that he is the best quarterback in the league. I stand by that. Even though Joe Burrow has beat him, I think Joe Burrow is coming for the crown. I think it's on his mind, probably. But, it's just, crazy to see the Bengals in the Super Bowl. And honestly, I'm happy for them that they made it, for that fan base, because of after everything they've suffered throughout the years, all the mediocrity, all the heartbreak of not being able to make it far in the playoffs. And as a Colts fan, I definitely do know what it's like to see a team struggle. I'll get into the Colts later on in this episode, obviously, but the Cincinnati Bengals being able to play the monster in KC, going into Arrowhead, one of the toughest, if not the toughest place to play in the NFL at this point in time. And honestly, one thing I'm happy about the Chiefs losing, even though I did pick them to win the Super Bowl, is I don't have to hear from Patrick Mahomes' family anymore. They're so obnoxious. I can't stand them. That's a topic for another day. But also, Nick Wright, you're an absolute bum, man. I mean, you're a Chiefs fan. I get it. He's the host of a show in America, sports show called, not the host, but the main guy on a show called First Things First on Fox. He's a Chiefs fan. He's a Chiefs fanboy, LeBron fanboy, and that's okay. But when you're tweeting out stuff like this, and I've been very vocal on Twitter and said some explicit stuff to Nick Wright, but I won't say what I said on here, but I will tell you guys about the tweets. I mean, talking about the Bills game going back that the Chiefs had. I mean, after the Bengals won their game against the Tennessee Titans in the divisional round, Nick Wright was like excited for the Chiefs and Bengals AFC Championship game or something like that. And, that's just disrespectful to the Bills and Josh Allen and just everyone on that team. And he gave them no credit, really. He gave them some credit after the game, but, really, I mean, come on, Nick. You're just disrespectful. He was even more disrespectful in this game, I gotta say. Before it started, he said, "Very excited for the 4th annual Arrowhead Invitational. Do you think they have a cool consolation trophy for Joe Burrow and the Bengals like they give to the second place teams at AAU tournaments?" Like, come on, man. I mean, the Bengals proved that they were going to be a tough test. And I even said, I said that the Chiefs would win this game. But I believe I did say that the Bengals were going to make this one close for a lot of the game. I'm not sure if I said that exactly, but I expect the Bengals to put up a fight in this game, and they did more than that. They did that and won the game. So, Nick Wright, you're a bum, but that's all I'll talk about for you. I'll probably rant about you another day and bring up all the receipts of how much of an idiot you are, how much of an ignorant guy you are. But let's get into the NFC Championship now. The San Francisco 49ers played on the road against the LA Rams, and really this wasn't really a road game for the Niners because most of the fans in the stands were 49ers fans, and I think it's kind of a problem if you're the LA Rams franchise, just knowing that in your own stadium in an NFC Championship game, when your team is one game away from going to a Super Bowl, where they will play on home turf, and it's mostly 49ers fans, I don't think that's the greatest look, to be honest. But this game, looking at it, the San Francisco 49ers were up 17-7 going into the 4th quarter. Had the LA Rams on the ropes, but the LA Rams came through with 13 points, a huge play by the defense to create that turnover that was made by Jimmy Garoppolo in this game to seal the deal and send the LA Rams to the Super Bowl. Sean McVay and his team, for Sean McVay, it's his 2nd Super Bowl appearance, one of the best coaches in the league, in my opinion. You could argue that he is a top 3 coach, top 5 coach at least, in my opinion. I'd say he's a top 3 coach. But yeah, looking at this game, Jimmy Garoppolo, honestly, like throughout this game, even though he did throw an interception and went 16 for 30, 232 yards, 2 passing TDs, I don't think this loss is on him, to be honest. I think it was just the O-line throughout the game not being able to get establish the protection that Jimmy G needed. Obviously, Jimmy G not being the elite quarterback that some players are in this league, he needs that protection, and you should be expected to not exactly holding up against that LA Rams pass rush, but you should be able to help your quarterback out a bit more. And I think that also comes down to play calling. I didn't watch this game very much, to be honest, but I did hear some of the play calling wasn't the greatest from Shanahan down the stretch. And as good as Kyle Shanahan has been as a head coach, it's a theme of this. I mean, as an offensive coordinator in the Super Bowl for the Atlanta Falcons when they were up 28-3, just didn't manage the game very well. Against the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, didn't manage the game very well. In this game, didn't manage the game very well. Deebo Samuel had a very good game. I mean, leading rusher on the team, also 72 yards in the air for 4 catches and a TD. But that's another problem. When Deebo Samuel, who is such a dynamic player and one of the funnest players to watch in the league, but when a receiver is leading your team in rushing and the next best rusher has 20 yards and he only rushed the ball 11 times, when that is the case, when I feel like the strength of this team should be their running game, you could still use Deebo in the running game, but when he's your leading rusher with 26 yards and your next best player at that position, Elijah Mitchell has 20 yards on 11 carries. That ain't going to cut it. That's 1.8 yards per carry on average. But, for the LA Rams, credit where credit's due. They came to play for the end of that game, and that defense came to play. Aaron Donald and the boys were fired up. Matt Stafford in this game, you take a look at the numbers as well. 31 for 45, 337 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, an interception that happened in the first quarter. But Cooper Kupp continues to be the most productive receiver in the league. And honestly, this year, I don't think he's the best receiver in the league overall quite yet, but I think for this season, he is undisputedly the best receiver in the league. And I honestly think he has a chance. I think he does win Offensive Player of the Year, as much as it pains me to say it, with Jonathan Taylor being my boy. I mean, you can't ignore what Cooper Kupp did this season, having a very historical season for himself. But 11 receptions, 142 yards, 2 TDs. I mean, how do you not cover this guy? But it's easier said than done because he is that good. Odell Beckham Jr. showed up to play, 9 receptions for 113 yards. I mean, it was just to get that production out of your top 2 receivers, talent-wise. Your top 2 receivers, not just talent-wise, but the best 2 receivers on the team. Is just something that you got to be so happy with if you're the Rams. And, if you're an LA Rams fan, even though there wasn't, that same Rams support in their home stadium as the 49ers had. But yeah, the Rams off to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks to play against the Cincinnati Bengals in LA in SoFi Stadium. Going to be a heck of a game. I feel like I'm going to have my predictions for you guys on that game. Well, my prediction for that game coming up next week on the show. And also excited about the halftime show that's going to be happening. You got Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, Dr. Dre, and I'm not too familiar with the girl that is performing, but I'm excited to see what she is going to bring to the table too. So yeah, that's a very star-studded lineup, and I'll maybe talk about that next week. Could that be the best halftime show ever? Many will disagree, but I feel like many will agree. So we'll get into my opinion on that next week, as well as my Super Bowl prediction. But talking about this, Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, after having one of his best seasons ever, has retired from the National Football League. Tom Brady, looking at it, believe, yes, he announced his retirement officially yesterday. And I'm going to be honest, Adam Schefter really bothered me because he tried announcing Tom Brady's retirement early. And Adam Schefter, I think he's a bum. I think he's a hack. I mean, I'm not going to paint myself as some perfect journalist. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a journalist. I'm not going to say I'm a perfect reporter. I do get stuff wrong. But, Adam Schefter, like, what are you doing? The greatest football player of all time, in my opinion, Tom Brady. I think a lot of people would agree is planning to retire. And you put that out as a story when he hasn't even made the announcement yet. You're such a bum, man. Like, such an idiot. I can't stand Adam Schefter and ESPN, honestly. But, 22 seasons for Tom Brady. 7 Super Bowl rings. 5 MVPs. Let's look at it. His achievements here for Mr. Tom Brady, DB12. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Besides a 9-7 season, the guy, I mean, it's a team game, but he never had a record below. He always had a winning season. This was a guy that absolutely ran the division while he was on the New England Patriots for his career before he went to Tampa Bay. This is a guy that would win his division every single season, and almost like there's very few years when he didn't. I mean, this is a guy that stood in the way of Peyton Manning and the Colts, who Peyton Manning, if he didn't have to play Tom Brady, who knows, he could have more Super Bowls. He's my favorite athlete of all time, but I admit Tom Brady's the greatest of all time, right? But looking at it, I mean, Tom Brady was the AP most valuable player for 3 seasons, actually. I think it's Super Bowl MVPs. Let's take a look at it. Sorry, folks. I'm just looking off the internet here. I believe it was his Super Bowl MVPs that he won 5 of. Man, my computer can't load very much, but it's freezing up here. I'm trying to look at the stats, everybody. I'm sorry. Let's you know what? I will try to look at this on my phone. The phone always works, even though my phone is almost dead. But yeah, I mean, Tom Brady, like I was telling Seth, like he played in the league before Seth was even born and continued until this season, right? I mean, Tom Brady has played ever since I've been born. He was on he was on the New England Patriots roster the year before. Like he was in the league and not playing exactly, but he was in the league before I was even born. You know, just taking a look at it, I mean, 7 Super Bowl rings, most out of any franchise in NFL history, period. And one guy was able to win. And yes, I do get it. Super Bowl rings are not the best way to judge a player, but because it's a team sport, but when you're able to win the Super Bowl 7 times and be a huge reason about that, yes, his team won by field goals. Yes, there were some times when, you could say he got lucky, like the Malcolm Butler interception, but at the end of the day, why was New England in that position to win in those games? It was because of Tom Brady. New England was up before Malcolm Butler made that interception. And if you want to talk about luck, going against Tom Brady, like if you want to talk about the luck that he didn't have, the season when they were 18-0 in 2007, lost in the Super Bowl to the Giants, the luckiest catch of all time, you can say. And David Tyree of the helmet catch ended up costing the Patriots in that game. The Mario Manningham sideline catch, an unbelievable throw made by Eli Manning. The play to get them down, the Seattle Seahawks, to get them down into the chance that they had to win, Russell Wilson throws a deep ball. It gets batted by the New England cornerback and curses on his back. And the ball ends up falling onto him. So, like, they wouldn't even have a chance to score in that position if it wasn't for that lucky play that went against the Patriots. So don't give me this crap about how Tom Brady was lucky. No, you don't get lucky 7 times. He was down 28-3 to the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl. Yes, the defense stepped up in that game, and yes, there was poor play calling from the Atlanta Falcons. But at the end of the day, who led them back at quarterback? Tom Brady, the greatest comeback of all time. Talking about, everyone was counting him out the year that Patrick Mahomes was in his second season, his first season of starting. You can talk about the overtime rules and how they're bogus, but those are just the way the rules are. Tom Brady went into Arrowhead and beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs along with that team, and looked pretty darn good in that game. And yes, they only won the Super Bowl that season, I believe, 10-3 over the LA Rams. But Tom Brady, even though he didn't score a touchdown, didn't throw a touchdown in that game, ended up leading his team down the field on a game-winning drive. He's consistently done it at the highest level in the highest stakes situations in the biggest moments. The best playoff QB of all time. A guy that has a heck of a resume. And yes, he's been playing for such a long time, but for him to put up these stats, I don't think you could take it away from him. Now, let's take a look at the Super Bowl MVPs. The Super Bowl MVPs for Tom Brady, he's won 5 Super Bowl MVPs, 3 regular season MVPs. Taking a look at Tom Brady's all-time stats as well. Taking a look at Tom Brady's all-time stats. As said, put out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady ended his 22-year career overall starting 316 of 318 games played with an all-time record of 243, 73-0, so he never tied a team. He completed over 7,000 passes, 7,263, of his 11,317 attempts and amassed an all-time record of 84,520 passing yards. He had 624 of those passes were in the end zone, and 203 of them or interceptions. Let's take a look at Tom Brady's career, right? Taking a look at the records that he had. This was a guy that only failed to win 10 games in a season, as he was the man under center on his teams one time, and that came in the second season. Multiple 12-win seasons, an undefeated regular season, and almost went perfect. Obviously, yes, he had his great weapons along the way, but you talk about a guy like Julian Edelman. Who was Julian Edelman before Tom Brady? Rob Gronkowski wanted to retire if he got traded to Detroit, and yes, he gets traded to Detroit, but he didn't want to play without Tom Brady. You talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, they were so stacked, but guys wanted to come and play in Tampa Bay because of Tom Brady. Gronk came out of retirement to play with Brady. They admitted that they wouldn't have won the Super Bowl without Tom Brady that season because of his leadership last year. I mean, he went on the road every single game in the playoffs except for the Super Bowl and ended up beating every single team including the MVP and Aaron Rodgers in that NFC Championship game. And yes, I get it. Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions in that game, but still, to do it consistently time and time again, to own the records he has. I mean, I want to find the all-time passing records here. All-time passing records. For anyone to not call Tom Brady the greatest of all time, a guy that did it consistently year after year, and even after he went out with the season ending, I believe it was a knee injury the year after the team went undefeated, and to come back and make the playoffs again, is simply remarkable. I mean, come on, you can't dispute it. Yes, he's had great teams, but honestly, it's a team sport. You're going to fault him for the teams he played on? All this notion about how it was Belichick all the time. He goes into Tampa Bay and wins a Super Bowl the very next season. It's insane to me that people still have this notion that he's lucky or is not the greatest of all time. Most passing yards of any player in NFL history, 84,520. Take a look at the passing touchdowns. The most of all time, 624. Let's take a look at passer rating. You want to talk about passer rating? Well, Tom Brady, for the longevity out of his career, 97.1 passer rating, 97.6 passer rating, which is 8th out of any quarterback all time. It's just the most passes completed of all time. Obviously, he's had the most he has a lot of passes that he's attempted in his career. Let's take a look at it now. He's completed the most. I mean, he's attempted the most passes in his NFL career. But how could he not attempt that many passes when he's played for 22 seasons? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And the crazy thing is that I'm a Colts fan, so I should absolutely hate Tom Brady. I admire what Tom Brady has done. And people are like, "You're sick. I'm sick of watching Tom Brady win. I'm sick of him always being that guy going to the Super Bowl." Why were you sick of that? To watch something that we will never see again, most likely. I don't think we'll ever see what Tom Brady did ever again. Never. Never again will someone, unless someone gets lucky. Not if someone gets lucky, because that sounds hypocritical. But unless everything goes right for a person in the NFL at the quarterback position, unless someone is able to match what Tom Brady has been able to do, you can't match what Tom Brady's been able to do, man. I don't understand. He's the greatest of all time. It's undisputed in my opinion. And I think a lot of people will agree with that. I think he's the best football player of all time. I mean, yes, you can talk about, Lawrence Taylor, all the great players that played before, but Tom Brady, for what he did, in my opinion, I guess I should say, for, everything that I've watched and everything, he's the greatest player of all time. There's no question about it. And, you talk about it. He's 44 years old this year. He's in the MVP conversation. And to be able to be in the MVP conversation this season, and with just, honestly, you talk about how he had such a stacked team in Tampa Bay. He had injuries this season on the team. I mean, Antonio Brown, ended up essentially getting kicked off the team. Chris Godwin, like his best receiver, out for the season. Rob Gronkowski was in and out of the lineup, injured for most of the season, and Tom Brady still got it done. And let me tell you what he did. Tom Brady, in his season this year, as a 44-year-old, attempted the most passes that he's ever attempted with 719, completed 67.5% of those passes, had the most passing yards in his career. Talking about the touchdowns, had the second most touchdowns thrown in his career, and only 12 interceptions. Like, he could have played for longer, but I do believe that he wants to spend time with his family now and spend time being a father, because he's given so much to the game. And honestly, you can't blame him at this point. As much as it sucks that Tom Brady won't be in the league next season and ever again, I still believe that he could play at a high level. He said he'd retire when he sucked. He didn't. In fact, he had one of his best seasons ever. And yeah, it's, I fully respect his opinion, his decision to retire, because he's earned that right. Obviously he's earned the right, but he's got nothing left to prove. And even though he lost this season in the divisional round, obviously his defense created a lot of turnovers for them to come back into that game, but to almost come back, be the quarterback on a team that, was down 27-3 and tie it up. It is simply remarkable. It would have been remarkable if that happened again, but it didn't. But happy retirement to the GOAT, TB12. If you dispute it, I know, sports is subjective. It's all opinion, but you got to be absolutely crazy. But yeah, crazy. No more Tom Brady for the first time in my life next year coming up in the NFL. But going into something more related to the Bucs as well is Carson Wentz. Apparently, the second highest odds of him in terms of betting odds to be their new quarterback next year. Now, let me say this. If that happens for the Indianapolis Colts, where they got offered, you better get a lot in return. And I know you might not, but not a lot in return, but you better get some decent pieces in return. Talking about draft picks, you better get draft compensation at least. A first-round pick would be nice. You need to get a first-round pick. But, would I do it if I'm the Colts? Honestly, I know that I griped about Carson Wentz. But I will say this. I supported Carson Wentz this season. And yes, he is not the best quarterback in the league. He's not a top 10 quarterback in the league. But I believe that he could be debatably a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's better than Ryan Tannehill, and people consider Ryan Tannehill, in the top 15. I think Wentz is a top 20 quarterback, to be honest. And to be honest, yes, he did look off this season for the Colts at times. He wasn't making the, throws you'd expect a guy that you brought him in to do what he needs to do to be able to do that. But let's put this into perspective. This guy had one of his best seasons as a pro. Obviously not the best as his MVP caliber season back in 2017, but he comes in to learn a new system, and his best receiver on the team is Michael Pittman Jr., who is a stud in my opinion. But that's it. You got an aging T.Y. Hilton, an aging Jack Doyle, and Zach Pascal, and Paris Campbell, who really doesn't really play for the Colts. He's been injured. Carson Wentz this season was a solid quarterback in my opinion. And at times he was a good quarterback. Sure, he fell flat in the last few games, and I know that I ranted about it. But I'll stick by this. I'll admit that I'm changing up my tune here. But I will stand by this. you know, for these last 2 games for the Colts, for that to happen, absolutely no one came ready to play, especially in that Jacksonville Jaguars game. Now, your quarterback did not play good. Carson Wentz was bad in those 2 games. But, Indianapolis, their fan base, they change up so fast. They were like, oh, we're happy to have Carson Wentz. And then these 2 weeks happen, and I get it. It's devastating to lose like that. But, at the end of the day, this is a guy that people are calling a good quarterback this year. Even some people are calling him top 10, which I never agreed on. But his stats were there. And this is a guy that had a lack of weapons compared to some other teams in the league. And the Colts have a lot of money. They need to go out and either get a big fish in the offseason. Coming up, Ballard needs to be aggressive as well as a job as he's done. He has lacked in free agency. That is, I will admit that as a Colts fan. But in my opinion, you go out, you can get a receiver in the second round of the draft, most likely. I'm not sure how the receiving talent is, but you go out and get a big fish, I think, this offseason. A true number 1 receiver, and you throw money at him because you got the O-line. You got a phenomenal running back. You got a good defense. Not a great defense, a good defense, but a defense that forces turnovers. Get a bit better on the defensive side of the ball. Bring Carson Wentz in new weapons. Now, next year is going to be a make or break year for Carson Wentz. I'm not saying Carson Wentz is the future. I like to believe he is the future for Indianapolis because I want the quarterback of my favorite team to do well. But I think you just got to give him one more year unless, you're able to go out and get someone like a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers, which you'll have to give up way more in terms of, what you're going to get in return for Wentz. You'd have to give up so much to get a guy like Aaron Rodgers or a guy like Russell Wilson. I don't think any of those two happen. Like, you're not going to bring in someone that is going to be a significant upgrade from Carson Wentz, and you're just going to keep going in that same cycle. Keep going and going and going. The QB talent in this draft this year, I heard, is not the deepest, not the greatest. I will say this thing. I will say one thing. I understand that Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, is tired, sick and tired of, the Colts being as mediocre as they've been in terms of not getting the results. But his tweets about, talking about basically calling out Carson Wentz, talking about the 8 quarterbacks in the NFL in the playoffs. He tweeted this on Divisional Round, basically saying that you need guys like that, basically calling out Carson Wentz. I mean, you can go to Jim Irsay's Twitter, pretty easy to find. You just type in Jim Irsay, his last name spelled IRSAY, like and then say, right? But I get he's the owner and he can do what he wants, but I don't think him calling out Carson Wentz was the best thing. He basically called him out, and obviously, like, you can do that, but I would have, like, if I were Jim Irsay, I would have kept that to myself. But he might have been pretty emotional, just watching it, or just fired up about what he was seeing out there, because the quarterback talent in the divisional round was pretty darn good. But at this point, the Colts fans, I know the majority of the fan base don't want Carson Wentz back, but let me tell you, you're not going to get anything better than Carson Wentz, in my opinion, unless you trade for a quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers if he doesn't opt out of his contract. And Russell Wilson's going to be asking for a lot as well. Like, if you are able to get those guys to come sign, that would be awesome. That would be amazing. But unless those two guys aren't there, and looking at the class of QBs, and if you want to trade a first-round pick, like, yes, you could get one, but you'll be in the same place next year and continue struggling to make the playoffs. I think that this was a very good team this season, a team that should have been in the playoffs if it wasn't for the last 2 weeks. I just think that you need to get more weapons for Carson Wentz this season. And if it doesn't work out this season, if he just shows he's the same, mediocre quarterback that a lot of people like to say he is, I think that he ranges to mediocre to solid to good quarterback. Wouldn't call him elite, but I think he's a QB that the Colts could do some damage with, potentially, if he's able to be supplied with with some good weapons. In my opinion, I truly do believe that. But, I could also be very wrong on that. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's gonna be interesting. Like, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think that if you get Carson, I'll put it this way. If you got Carson Wentz, good weapons, if you get him a number 1 receiver coming out, a guy that can, come in, and you have Pittman as that number 2 guy as well, I think that the Colts could do well with Carson Wentz in terms of making the playoffs, because let me tell you, he's better than Ryan Tannehill. He's better than whoever Houston has. I think Trevor Lawrence will be better. Obviously, as his career goes along, he's an insane talent. But at this point, like, Carson Wentz, still statistically the best quarterback in the AFC South. And I mean, you give him some more weapons. I'm not sure if he'll be able to take you to a Super Bowl, but I think he can take you to the playoffs, to be honest. And I'll stand by that. Now, one more thing before I'm going to take another commercial break to gear up for my rant. The Washington Commanders, the new name of the Washington football team, as they were previously called. And I'll say this thing, I don't mind the name, honestly. It's not the sexiest name, it's not the flashiest name, but it's a good name. I think the Washington Brigade would have been cool, but the Washington Commanders, I think that's pretty cool. I think it's a cool name. I don't think, it's obviously the best name of a sports team. It's going to take some time to get used to. And I know a lot of people hate it, but I'm going to be honest, I don't mind the name. I think it's cool. And I think Washington, did not screw it up. I don't think they screwed it up. But let's go to a commercial break, folks. Coming back, it's time for a rant here on Graham's Opinion, I guess, in part 3 in this very long edition of the segment. Stick around.
Earth Saver. We at Smiley Worms would like to introduce you to our original vermicompost idea. If you're here looking at this, you probably know vermicompost is the best natural soil amendment man or nature has created. The big idea was the Earth Saver. Everything in this bag was kept out of landfills and pre-composted and fed to our worms. Canadians send an average of 720 kilograms per person of organic waste to the landfill each year. We found this alarming. Many Canadians realize it's a problem, but do not have a solution. Most people do not compost. You can be a part of the solution. Buy a bag of Earth Saver to feed your healthy soil. We can only guarantee this. We kept it out of the landfill, your worms ate it, and your plants will love it. These would be great for your home, garden project, or even a fundraiser. Still not convinced? Send us an email. We'll send you a free sample. You'll love it. This is work and product we're most proud of. One last thing. We're located in Manitoba. If we're too far from you, contact us anyway. We may know someone. Worm farmers are awesome breed.
And welcome back here to Rise and Shine Manitoba, everybody. Rise and Shine Manitoba, everybody. Yeah, it's been a lot that I've talked about on Graham's Opinion today. If you've liked today's edition of Graham's Opinion, if you've enjoyed what I've been talking about along with Seth Rach, be sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below. Do you guys agree or disagree with the takes? You guys be the judge. I mean, you guys are the viewers, right? You guys view the show. So I would like to hear your guys' thoughts if you guys want. But yeah, getting into this rant now. And I'm gonna be honest. This is a rant that I think that I'm gonna get very heated on. And let me clarify once again that my views on this topic do not align with the views of ASTV Productions, this company that I'm working for, ASTV, of course. They do not align. These are my views and my views only, and I'm sure people might agree on this opinion, but I'm not sure. This is my take on it. But I want to make that very clear before I start off getting into this, that my opinions on Bell Media, the telecommunications company, do not align with ASTV Productions. These are my views and my views only. These are my personal views. Now, why do I bring up Bell Media? Well, Bell Media, as you guys know, as you may know, I'm pretty sure everyone knows because it's always posted on social media every January 26th, does a day to raise funds for mental health called Bell Let's Talk Day. You know, it's all over social media. When you post something to do with Bell Let's Talk, they donate 5 cents to mental health. But here's the thing. I've donated to Bell Let's Talk every single year since I can remember up until this year. And last year was the final straw. Now, people had a lot of problems with Bell Let's Talk. I know that some people have not ever agreed with it. And I always thought, why? It's a good initiative going to mental health. Raising funds for a very serious situation that is always going to be serious. Mental health is just the most important thing in the world, and I think, and just to see, just the number of people that have taken their lives, or people that have felt like they're alone and can't talk to anybody about their problems, it's heartbreaking. I will give Bell credit for one thing, is they do a good job of get the conversation rolling, but in my opinion, Bell Media cares about Bell Let's Talk for one thing and one thing only: for good PR. Let me tell you something. A week after Bell Let's Talk in the year of 2021, last year, you know what Bell Media did? Let me tell you what Bell Media did last year. A week after their Bell Let's Talk initiative ended up taking place. A week after that happened, folks, I'm getting geared up here to talk about this, because I gotta tell you guys the true facts. I want to get this exactly right. Last year on February 2nd, a week after the Bell Let's Talk initiative, after Bell Let's Talk Day, Bell Media laid off at least 210 employees. And that was in TSN. I'm not sure where else, but I remember it being a huge story. A lot of big names from TSN, they got terminated. Frank Cervelli, Dan O'Toole, what's her name? Hedger, I believe is her name. A lot of people, and a lot of these people didn't even find out they were terminated until they found out on social media. But it gets worse after this. A week later, after they laid off at least 210 employees, Bell cut 3 of their sports radio stations. These radio stations were TSN 1040 in Vancouver, TSN 1150 in Hamilton, and TSN 1290 in Winnipeg. Several ex-employees found out that they lost their job on social media. And I think the most sickening part of this whole thing was that Bell received $122 million from the government in money. And why did they make these firings? They can say whatever they want. They were restructuring, whatever. It was to save money. And that, a week after You use mental health to make yourselves look good. Obviously, you donated the money to various foundations. But a week after that, in the next 2 weeks, you did something that went against mental health, firing employees without notice. Maybe some got notice, but finding out you got fired on social media is just when this isn't just a job for people, this is a career. Finding that out is absolutely sickening. Let me tell you something, Bell Let's Talk, Bell Media. One of my closest friends has struggled with mental health, and it's been hard on him, and it's heartbreaking to see. A guy I went to school with, I talked about this last year on my show Coffee with Graeme. A dear friend of mine in high school, I will admit that we lost contact after, ended up taking his own life. And that's just examples of many stories that have happened. I know people that are affected by mental health. Many people know people that are affected by mental health. But Bell Let's Talk Day, as good as it looks, you just use it to make yourselves look good, and it's absolutely sickening. Let me tell you something. When you preach about the importance of mental health and opening up the conversation, that's great. But when you go and do what you did, laying off at least 210 employees a week later and cutting 3 radio stations, that goes against what you were trying to preach, honestly, because those firings have a huge effect on people's mental health. It would on mine for sure. And it's just, I couldn't believe it. And from that day forward, I am never, ever donating to Bell Let's Talk again. Bell Let's Talk Day again. And you know why? Because yes, the money being raised by Bell Let's Talk Day is great. But at the end of the day, Bell, in my opinion, is a corporation that used mental health as a weapon. Weaponized it to make themselves look good. And I can't stand for that ever again. I can't. I've had my own mental health struggles throughout my life. I'll admit, the worst time of my life was in high school. I felt isolated. I felt alone. My mental health took a big toll on me. And I've never been diagnosed with clinical depression or any mental health issues. But that doesn't matter. Anyone can be affected by mental health. These things can be developed throughout lifetime. Clinical illnesses. And to see the support throughout the years, the education that goes into people understanding what mental health is, how to talk to someone that's depressed, all that stuff, being there for someone, being there for support, a great service that I promote at the start of every single one of my episodes here on the show, not just Rise and Shine Manitoba here, but Coffee with Graeme and the Prospect Show Crisis Services Canada, a helpline for people who, need someone to talk to. It's fantastic. And Bell Let's Talk Day, in theory, is fantastic. But when it's run by a corporation like Bell, a company that I believe also raises, their bills on their phone plans a month later, I think I've heard that, to make up for what they lost during it. I'm not sure if that's completely accurate, but if that is true, that is absolutely sickening too. It's heartbreaking to see such a good initiative in theory be just tarnished, in my opinion, after what they did, especially after receiving $122.8 million. And the reason they did this was for money. And let me tell you something, that does not solve mental health when you do that, especially when you backstab the people that work for you. But let me tell you something, Bell doesn't care what they did, because those employees, they look at them as replaceable. And yes, in theory, you can replace someone to do a job, like be a TV host, be a radio personality, talk show host, all that stuff, right? And obviously, I'm replaceable as well. This is a job that, I'm sure a lot of people could do, coming on here and rambling and giving their opinion. But one thing that I can't stand for is just, if I were to be fired, and in theory, if I were to be fired, right? And I found out through social media, that would send me into depression, let me tell you that. Because for these people working in this industry, for myself, this isn't just a job for me. obviously I get paid money, but this is a career for me. This is a career, and this was a career for all those people who got fired. And they love their jobs, I'm sure. I don't know if every one of them love their jobs, but you got to think Dan O'Toole loved coming on with Jay Onrait and talking about sports. Like, they've been together since day one, basically. But you took that away from them because you wanted to save money. Just it's tough to talk about because, like I said, I've been affected personally by mental health, to be honest. Like I said, in high school, it's a lot better now. I'm in the best place I've ever been. I got a great support staff, the best girlfriend in the world, amazing friends. But I also know people who have struggled with mental health and close friends of mine. And that is just heartbreaking me because that affects me in a way as well, too, knowing that they're going through those struggles. And so this brings me to my point that I'm never donating to Bell Let's Talk Day again. They will never get a donation from me ever again. Never, ever will they be getting another donation from me. But I still want to donate to mental health, to help raise funds for this cause, for this issue, for this health issue. So what I did was I created a GoFundMe page called the initiative, the fundraiser is called Graeme's Mental Health Fundraiser. And I opened it up last night. And from now on, in every one of my episodes, I'm going to be linking it here for you guys to donate if you want. And if you don't want to donate, that's fine too. But please share this, because this is going to be running until my birthday on May 10th. From this day, or from yesterday, today, and from this day as well, all the way up until May 10th, this fundraiser will be kept open on GoFundMe.com. And the goal right now, it's set to raising $1,000. And, doesn't matter how much money you donate. You could donate $1,000. You could donate $100, $50, $25. You could donate $1. You could donate a cent. It doesn't matter. Any money will go towards a great cause. And the cause, the association that I'm donating to, the foundation that I'm donating to, or the association, I guess you can call it that, is the Canadian Mental Health Association. It's said on their website that it is the most established, most extensive community mental health organization in Canada. And yes, I know that Bell, all the money, not all the money, but their money in Bell Let's Talk, from Bell Let's Talk Day, goes to this organization, abbreviated the CMHA. But unlike them, I don't think I'm a corrupt person. And that's a corrupt company, in my opinion, Bell. And yeah, I'm not making any money off this fundraiser. All the proceeds that are donated, all the money that is being donated in this fundraiser will be going to the Canadian Mental Health Association. So if you want to donate today, I will link the link to the GoFundMe page in this episode, along with every episode moving forward. And also, if you guys want to learn more about who the Canadian Mental Health Association is, you guys can go visit their website at cmha.ca, and I also link the website in the GoFundMe page on the fundraiser. And yeah, like I said, this fundraiser will be running until my birthday. I'm hoping to hit the goal by May 10th of $1,000 raised. If you do donate, thank you for that. If you don't donate but choose to share, thank you for that as well. And, I just want to let you guys know that if you ever are struggling with mental health, going through something, I know I don't know my viewers face to face. I've never met a whole lot of you. But, and I know this sounds cliche, it might be, but I truly do mean this. if you have Instagram, hit my DM if you ever need someone to talk to about, whatever you're going through. My Instagram is Graeme Forsyth. You guys can hit me up on Twitter as well if you have that. Just looking at my Twitter handle, I believe that it is _G show _ is the name of my personal account. Yeah, the _G show _. So a G and then the word show, the _G show _. And then you guys can also find me on Facebook too if you want to communicate there as well. All my DMs are open at any time. Just whatever you may be going through and you need someone to talk to and you feel like you can't talk to somebody in your family or your friends, your loved ones, my line is always open. And at the same time, you are not obligated to talk to me about your mental health problems as well. That's going to do for my rant. I will be linking the GoFundMe in this episode and every single episode that I do of Rise and Shine Manitoba, as well as on Coffee with Graeme and the Prospect Show, my 2 other shows here on the network. And once again, I will clarify that these views that I have on Bell Media do not represent the views of ASTV Productions. I want to make that 100% clear, even though I've said it a bunch of times already before. These are solely my opinions and how strongly I feel that Bell Media is just wrong for what they've done. Last year, it was the final straw for me. But that's going to do for today's edition of Graham's Opinion, everybody. Felt pretty emotional there. But it's I'm okay. I want to give a special thanks for the guests that joined today's episode, everybody. And Harry Siemens on the Farm Report, Scott Taylor of Game On Magazine and or Game On Hockey, as well as Gordie Tumilson of Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, goalie coach and marketing director. Also want to thank Seth Rach for coming on the show as well today and talking about the Winnipeg Jets and the NHL and Team Canada's men's hockey Olympic roster. And also, I want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in today and sticking around for this long in this episode. It's a long one, almost 2 hours and 45 minutes, 2 hours and 41 minutes at this point. But also a special thanks to our sponsors in Fabricland Winkler, AETI, and Evolve Green for sponsoring this episode today on Rise and Shine. Want to let you guys know that the segment I do on my other show, the Prospect Show Player Breakdown, where I analyze hockey players on my show, one player I analyze per episode. I was going to put it up yesterday, but did not have the time. I am going to put it up today because I do have some more time on my hands today. To do some more stuff. Was very busy yesterday, but that will be up today. That segment, just that part of the episode, always release it separately from the episode as well. It is included in the Prospect Show, but I always release a separate edition of just that segment strictly on our Facebook and YouTube. So stay tuned for that. But stay tuned for that throughout the day. Also, Rise and Shine Manitoba will be coming to you guys again next week at 10 a.m. Central Time. You guys can catch it on our Facebook at ASTV Productions, on our website at astvproductions.com, and also on our Twitter as well. Be sure to stay tuned for the guest list in that episode as well. Be sure to do that on our social media pages, on our Instagram at ASTV Productions, on our Facebook, and on our Twitter, as well as that guest list will be released next Tuesday night before midnight at the latest. But that's going to do for today's edition of Graham's Rise and Shine Manitoba, everybody. Manitoba show here on ASTV Productions. Until next week on Wednesday, have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday today. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend as well, and a wonderful start to your week before I see you guys next Wednesday. And stay safe out there. If you guys are on the road, stay safe as well. If you are planning on driving with this crazy weather that's happening right now, I'm not too sure, but I believe my parents told me there might be some more snow coming, so that is kind of unfortunate. Well, not unfortunate, but just a lot of snow that's been happening. I love the snow, but there's been a lot of it, and that just means got a shovel, right, for me personally. But Stay warm as well. It does get pretty cold. I know that Scott Taylor said it was like minus 44 today. So yeah, that's pretty cold weather. But yeah, have a good one, everybody. Stay safe out there, stay warm, and until next Wednesday, I'll see you then, everybody. Peace out.